Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of the public access pursuant to an order issued by the Governor of Massachusetts dated March 12, 2020, superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. The meetings will have a question and answer session following each public hearing. Abutters will have the ability to raise their hand. We would like you to keep your comments to less than 3 minutes. And if this topic has already been discussed, we'd prefer that your comment would be that you agreed with the person that made those comments, as opposed to repeating that just to move things along in the meeting. Thank you. So we submitted Conservation Commission on Wednesday evening, and the agenda is up there, and we have a few minor changes, right?
Yeah, so Frank, we just wanted to announce that 151st Parish, which is a request for determination of applicability, has been continued to March 1st. And also the dock portion of 8 Newell Street has been continued, which we'll read those when we get to them in order of the queue of the agenda. We're also going to add a discussion about Appleton Field at the end of the meeting, and also discuss commission deadlines for submittals. And does anybody else have anything they want to add to?
I do. I saw something down Hummerock I'd like to discuss at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion, Frank, to accept the agenda with these add-ons.
That'd be great. Do I have a second?
Second, Doug.
Doug had a second, so all in favor. Richard?
I don't know if he's on yet.
I saw him there.
Oh,
Richard, are you unmuted?
He's talking, but he must be muted.
I don't believe he's a co-host. Richard Harding. There you go.
There I am. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Richard.
Sorry.
Good evening. Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're going to open this with 0 Booth Hill.
Yes,
And this is an ANRAD.
and it's a continuance from a previous, like we opened it a couple meetings ago, and it was continued to this date. So you don't need to read the public hearing notice.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and who do we have for Representative? John Zimmer?
Yes.
Okay. John, are you there?
Okay. Yes. Can you guys hear me?
I can.
Excellent. For the record, my name is John Zimmer with South River Environmental on behalf of the applicant. This is actually, some of you were on the commission way back in 2011 or 2012 when we first brought an ANRAD in front of the commission to confirm the resource area boundaries within a parcel located off Booth Hill Road. You know, just for folks who are interested in this hearing, there's no work being actually proposed under this filing. It's an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. So what it does is basically it's a mechanism to confirm the wetland resource area boundaries out there. And basically what that will do is lock those lines in for a period of 3 years. So that's the sole purpose of the filing. We went through this process back in 2011, 2012. I went out and delineated the resource areas back then. Ibis Environmental conducted a third-party review, and we received an approved ANRAD back then. Subsequent to that time, the ANRAD has lapsed. So we resubmitted a new application with the commission to basically do the same exact thing. I went back out and refreshed the wetland flags. There was some minor changes in the boundaries based on changes in vegetation, which occurred over the past 8 years or so. The commission hired Ibis Environmental again to review the line. He did so, Steve did, and provided a review comment letter back to the commission with a couple of proposed changes to, I think, flag A52 and A84, 85, that area. I went back in the field and made those adjustments. They were picked up. We submitted a revised site plan, which is before you now, which shows the originally approved line from back in 2012, and then the new approved new line that's before the commission tonight for approval. A couple of housekeeping items. The ANRAD was filed through Bartlett Fields Realty Trust. Came to my attention today that the property ownership is now under Bartlett Fields LLC. It's the same controlling entities. It's just a different name. So I provided Amy with a quick email prior to the hearing. If the commission would like an updated site plan documenting that, we can certainly do that as a condition of the ANRAD. And secondarily, there were a couple of questions that arose with respect to abutter notification. The original abutter notification was conducted in accordance with the certified abutters list, which I received from the assessor's office. Subsequent to that, in discussion with Amy, I sent out some additional abutter notifications to the remaining owners of the Merritt Woods condo parcels, as well as to the president of the condo association in advance of this hearing. And I received all the green cards back and provided copies of the white slips back to the commission. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. The resource areas are bordering vegetated wetlands coming off of Booth Hill Road. There's an A series, which is the larger series by Booth Hill Road, a smaller, that's a C series, down along the property boundary to the south by Clap Road. And then there's a small intermittent stream, which is right off of the southwest corner. So those are the resource areas. They're essentially equivalent to what was previously approved. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Frank, I didn't know if maybe you wanted to hear from Steve Ibis quickly before we go through the commission.
Sure.
Okay, let's try to get him on.
Steve Ibis was our consultant for this project in reviewing the lines.
Very good. I'm unmuted. Thank you. Yes, I was here in 2012. We did the work based on a Murphy plan. The Murphy plan was also used earlier in late 2020. And now there's a new plan done by McKenzie. And we've been through it a couple of times now, John and I. And I am very satisfied with the plan that shows the old flag line and the new flag line. I'm very happy that McKenzie did it this way. It's very clear, and anybody who wants to take a look at any individual flag can see it. So I'm good with it. That's my summary. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. So Richard, any thoughts?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, there we go. I really remember this actually. Maybe because it's on screen and I really can't see it as well as I would wish. Can you just point out even just one of the flags that was changed from 2012 to now, just so I can get a feel for the extent of the change?
Can you do that, John?
You didn't hear me. He's still muted. There you go.
There we go. Yes, if you can zoom in to, you see the area. Let me see, I guess the easiest would be to go to the south of the.
Mhm.
Now, if you zoom in on the C series,
Mm-hmm.
Good, good.
now, right, if you keep zooming in a little bit, I'm not sure this is the correct plan.
That looks a little different from the one I have, I think.
That's really the essence of my question.
Right, there was a revised plan that was submitted that shows both lines very clearly.
Yes.
Well, that's
Yeah,
why.
this is the plan that we had as of a week ago.
That should be the plan.
So it's
Mm,
not the latest version.
John, can you just point out
Just a sample.
where the flags are and what made a move?
Sure. There was a slight movement in the line around, say, C24R over to C28. So the line actually came down closer to the property, so it came down closer to the south. And it was mainly a function of the vegetation that has grown in since that original ANRAD filing back in 2012. So you had a change in the herbaceous layer, which basically, reduced the dominance below that 50% threshold that's required.
So like C26 is further south?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would
But
agree
I
with
mean, the overall changes were I think that was probably the biggest change on the whole property, and maybe that was 5 to 8 feet, something like that.
That's all I really needed to know. And I was a little confused because I couldn't see the differentiation that you were talking about. So I get it. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Steve, do you concur with that? Steve,
yes, I do, Frank.
Thank you.
That's exactly correct. Yep.
Okay. Doug?
Nope, we've got two professionals agreeing. I'm happy with that.
So are we.
There you go. Penny?
No, I'm fine. The gentleman did a good job, the both of them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jen?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Andy?
I'm okay.
And Brendan?
I have no questions.
Okay. Amy, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I don't think so. I think it's pretty straightforward, and I believe it was reviewed thoroughly, and any of the comments that we had concerning a butter notification appear to have been addressed by John. So I think that an ORAD would be what we would issue, although I do believe that there's going to be a butters on the line, Frank.
Yeah. No, I think we should get some butter or beyond comments. So can we open this up?
Yeah, so if you want to participate, you should raise your hand.
Richard Crop. Dan.
Anybody with any questions or comments regarding Bartlett's Field?
Yeah,
Dan?
Hi, the only comment I had.
Can
and
you
I'm
just
new
say
to
who
this,
you are?
Dan Fenley, 65 Forest Lane.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. And the only comment I have is this plan, and I'm told there is another plan, but this plan does not show the egress onto 3A. And it would be nice if we saw that part of the whole property as well. That's my only comment.
Okay, thank you.
I'm told there's another plan that has that, but I don't think we've seen it yet.
John, can you point out where that access is?
I believe it's over in this area, but that portion isn't subject to the NRED that we filed.
Oh, that's why it wouldn't be, but it is in that upper corner there.
Yeah.
To
That
the
would
north.
that would be the northeast corner. Is that correct, John?
Yes,
That's correct.
yeah.
Are we missing any other parcels of land on this other than that piece, John?
No. There, in the original filing back in 2012, there was a piece to the south that abutted Clap Road. That's since been, I believe that's since been donated to the town.
Right.
That's not part of this filing.
Okay.
But
So
we've
I
got-
just want to make sure, Dan, you understand at this point, what we're really looking at is resource areas, wetlands resource areas. There's been no proposed project or anything like that. I understand your question about knowing where the land is, but at this point, all we're trying to do is determine the resource areas, the wetlands and the buffer zones on this piece of property.
Right, and I think an important thing for folks to understand is if anything is proposed to be done in the future on the property that comes within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, which it likely will since the main access or one of the main accesses is off of Booth Hill. Everyone who was notified tonight for this filing would also get notified for any type of filing associated with the property. So, you would definitely be very aware of anything in the future that may be proposed out here. I'm not aware of anything at this point. We're just looking basically to define the resource areas to see what could potentially be done. But, in the future, anything that is proposed that's within the commission's jurisdiction, we'd go through the same abutter notification process.
Thank you. So, Mr. Krupp? I think somebody's muted. Maybe Jen can unmute you.
Mr. Crop should be unmuted now.
Thank you. I'm the president of the Merrell Homeowners Association, and thank you for having us.
Great. Just for the record, just your name and address, please, sir.
Richard Kropp, 46 Forest Lane, Scituate, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
My question is it's a comment, it's a technical comment regarding the abutters notices. The notice that we received had already been signed for by the mailman for us. So the green card was gone, and it appeared as though he'd signed for us. So I'm concerned about that, so that if we get future notices, we may not know that we got, that we, we may not have returned the card ourselves. So I'm concerned about that, and I just wanted to be on the record for that.
Okay, did you speak to the post office about that?
Yeah, I've sent them a letter.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? This is a Francis Badger and a Scott Horsley.
Yeah, I'll unmute Mr. Badger.
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Hi. I just had one question about...
Again, just for the record, please state your name and address.
Francis Badger, 23 Forest Lane, Scituate, Mass.
Thank you, Mr. Badger.
One question about the narrative for the project, which is delineated in section 411. It talks about the intermittent stream in Series B, but there's nothing on the plan that shows the intermittent stream, and they're deemed to be delineated by B1 through B11. Should they not be on the plan?
John?
That resource area was originally delineated back in 2012. Those flags were not refreshed for this filing. The intermittent stream is located interior of the BVW boundary, and if the commission wishes, it can specifically exclude the original B series that was in the 2012 filing.
Actually, and John, to add to a little bit, there are some wetland flags TOB 1 through 6 on the intermittent stream on this plan.
Right. That's a secondary intermittent stream, which is down off the southwest corner.
Exactly.
But that is included in this filing. Correct.
Right.
Thank you, Steve.
So I guess my question is, what makes them different? Why is one on and one not? Because it's all in the wetlands area on the B series?
The stream down off of the C series has much better defined banks, and
Exactly.
you know the one in the A series is basically ephemeral flow. You know, there really isn't a well-defined bed and bank. When I originally flagged it, it was basically just a center line of basically a preferential pathway of drainage through the wetland. It wasn't something you could step down into. You know, one of the other wetland scientists that we work with, he defines intermittent streams as, you know, having that defined bed and bank if you step down into it and back up out of it. And this is mainly just a preferential pathway for flow through the wetland.
And I would agree entirely with that, John. Absolutely.
Mr. Badger?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Horsley?
Yes,
Good evening.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reiterate what
Again,
Mr.
just a name and address, sorry.
Yes, Scott Horsley, 65 Little River Road, Scituate, Massachusetts. I've been retained by Mr. Badger and others as abutters to review this plan, and I just want to reiterate his comment, maybe add to it. I do believe that there are two intermittent streams. If the applicant feels that one is ephemeral versus intermittent, they can make that distinction, but I believe they're both intermittent, and I think they both should be identified on the project for the following reason. That this filing presumes that there will be some development plans filed at some point, and both of these intermittent streams are tributary to Bound Brook, which is an important resource area that has specific standards which will need to be applied. And for the benefit of the landowner and developer and site designers, they should be mindful of this, because there are specific standards that will need to be applied in terms of nutrient loading and hydrologic effects. And this is not shown on the plan. Only BVWs have been delineated. And I believe that both intermittent streams, just to reinforce what Mr. Badger said, should be identified and be part of the filing. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
I would respectfully disagree with Mr. Horsley. There's no proposed development at this point. What we are asking for the commission to approve is the wetland boundaries depicted on the site plan before the commission. If in the future there is any type of activity that's proposed within the site that would be in that area that would potentially affect any ephemeral drainage through that A-series wetland, the commission would certainly be able to address that at that time. But for the purposes of this ANRAD filing, we would prefer that the commission approve the wetland boundaries as depicted. It's not removing any jurisdiction from the commission with respect to intermittent streams or additional resource areas that that may be identified in the future. I mean, you could have something that could occur that could expand the wetland boundary that's not depicted here in another area of the property. That would not eliminate the commission's ability to review those resource areas. So, we just request that the commission approve the plan as proposed and as reviewed by Ibis Environmental.
And I would like to add, if possible, that the ephemeral stream peters out. It doesn't continue into Bound Brook in any way, shape, or manner.
Mr. Chairman?
Does that happen off property, Steve?
Well, it peters out on property, actually, right on the property. It peters out right at the end. In fact, there's an old, on the plan, you can see the old line of the ephemeral stream on the plan today. Okay, and that's basically where the flags were on the previous plan. Okay, can you see those? If you zoom in, oh, I'm sorry. The plan I'm looking at has the stream on it. The plan that you have on the screen does not. Okay, let's take a look at what the date of the plan I'm looking at is. Okay, one moment. It's a McKinsey Engineering Group plan dated 7 December and signed off on 31 December. Okay, so that's the most recent signature on the plan, 31 December. And do you have a signature on this plan that you're showing?
The signature, no date.
Interesting. Well, that's the one I have, existing conditions plan, signature and stamp, 31 December 20. You can see the ephemeral stream on this plan that I have. Amy, hopefully you have this plan in the file.
No, we do. As I said in the beginning, the plan that's on this presentation is what we had a week ago. So that does not include a plan that was provided after that date. So I think that there's a more recent plan than what we're showing here.
Yes.
But they'll be approving the latest submittal date.
Right, which would probably be the 31st December.
It's the 31st, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, thank you. So yeah, it's very clear where the ephemeral stream was located on the previous plans. And it just peters out.
Can we get Mr. Horsley or Mr. Bad a copy of that plan? Do they have that available to them?
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
sir.
can email that to him.
So I don't believe we do have all of those plans, and it sounds like there's more than one plan. One shows a stream, one doesn't show a stream. It also sounds like there's a debate whether there's one stream or two. We believe there are two. And it also sounds like there's a debate whether it's intermittent and ephemeral. So if the applicant believes there is one stream and it's ephemeral, we'd love to see that data and the hydrologic data that distinguishes it as ephemeral versus intermittent. There's a significant difference. Sounds like Mr. Ibis has that data. We'd love to see that. We don't have that. But our position is that according to existing Mass GIS data and USGS information, there were two intermittent streams leaving the property. And if that's is more specific data that further clarifies that, we'd love to see that. And we think it would be appropriate for the Conservation Commission to see that as well. And again, our point here is that if there is going to be a development plan going forward, this is important information. Now, it is true. It's the developer can work incrementally, propose one resource area now and another one later, but I think that's nobody's interest. If we're trying to be transparent and find out what the resource areas are, what the performance standards are, let's find out now, which is why we're urging for a comprehensive mapping and identification of all of these resource areas.
And the plan I'm looking at does have the other intermittent stream on the plan with a top of bank set of flags. And it's just off property at the southwest corner.
Right. If I'm not sure
on that.
Sorry, I'm not sure if you can provide me control, but I could bring that plan up and show it.
I don't think we can do that, John. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, John.
Okay. Well, I mean, the other option is, I mean, the location of the ephemeral stream or intermittent stream, you know, is shown on that December 31st plan. I'm 100% fine with the commission approving that line. That was, you know, it hasn't changed since that time. And, you know, it could be shown, and the commission could specifically put in the ORAD that the B series, you know, it is part of the approved delineation.
Yep.
Yep. And I would agree.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask another question?
Sure.
Would the commission being approving this as an ephemeral versus an intermittent stream, or would you not get that specific? And second related question, again, Mr. Ibis has data suggesting it is ephemeral versus intermittent. Is it possible we could see that data?
It was originally identified as an intermittent stream. Per the Wetlands Protection Act regulations, it would be regulated as an intermittent stream. So that's how we would request it be approved.
Okay, because Mr. Ibis is suggesting it's an ephemeral stream tonight.
I think the flow is basically ephemeral, but per the definitions of stream under the Wetlands Protection Act, it would be considered intermittent. And the regulated resource area would be inland bank.
Yes, and I would agree with that, John. So not a problem.
And are we in agreement there are two intermittent streams leaving the property?
I don't believe that the southwestern intermittent stream is even on the property, number one. And this does not leave the property, to my knowledge, either, the quote-unquote ephemeral stream. This does not. So I would disagree totally with that statement.
Okay, well, Mr. Chairman, we'd be happy to submit the mapping that I've referred to earlier that does show 2 intermittent streams.
Okay. We've had a little bit of back and forth here. Do any commission members want to add anything to this? Do they have any questions? It gets pretty technical. I'm not even quite sure I get the ephemeral stream, the whole piece of that, but
I do.
It's an intermittent stream reach, if you want to think of it as that.
Okay.
That make it a little bit clearer.
okay.
No.
So Amy, I'm
ready to close.
if we were to close this, we can take that in. We want to get to Mr. Horsley and or Mr. Badger. He can give it to Mr. Horsley. That Steve's information on the ephemeral stream.
Yeah, we can get Mr. Badger and Horsley anything in the file that we have copies of.
Okay, and then
I don't have more than this plan, frankly. I you know, and some observations. That's it.
Yeah. All right. So then, are we looking for them to create a new plan with all that information on it, or a blended plan? I'm a little.
The December 31st plan is a blended plan. It shows both the original line, it shows the B series, and it shows the new line.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And that's the plan that we're approving.
That is correct.
It's in the office, Frank. It just isn't up on the screen.
All right. I mean, I've walked this property way back when we did this. I'm very familiar with the property, and looking at all this, it's too bad we don't have the right.
It just isn't on the screen.
Well,
John, you should know that the plan I'm looking at doesn't have the B series on it. There's no character B on it, but it does have the line itself. I don't know if you have that as well. Just FYI.
I feel like if there's anything that's unclear on the latest version, that the ORAD should reflect that it's unclear and that our approval is only what we're approving, but that there are other resource areas out there that will warrant additional investigation when a notice of intent is filed. What do you think about that, Steve?
Yeah, and actually you could talk about where the intermittent reach is located. It's located between flags A72 through A63 and A9 perhaps, or A10 to about A1. So that's what I would do with that, to more clearly define the location of the intermittent stream reach. It's not called out on the plan, but you have a line that shows where it was on the original Murphy plan. Does that make sense to you, John?
Yes, it does. And ultimately, the goal of this is to establish the limits of the commission's jurisdiction. With that intermittent stream located within the boundaries of the delineated BVW.
Yes.
No change within the commission's jurisdiction. All it would do is it would necessitate additional considerations if in the future there is any proposed activity there. Say there was a roadway that was proposed through there, then we would need to meet the mass stream crossing guidelines associated with the intermittent stream. But it wouldn't extend the commission's jurisdiction by having that delineated. So we're fine with approving the plan as it is, and whatever the commission needs to do to make sure you reserve your rights to review any additional resource areas, that's 100% fine. We're definitely okay with that.
And I agree with that, commission members.
Thank you. I don't want to keep going on this all night. Mr. Horsey would take one more comment. If you could unmute him, Jen.
Thank you. I was just able to unmute there. Yes, just one last comment. Again, it sounds like we don't have the plan in front of us, which some people are saying exists. We haven't seen it. It sounds like there is some additional information that could be added to the plan, including these streams. And I'd also suggest that, yes, while the BVW boundary does provide the aerial extent of the jurisdiction, whether or not these are two streams in these two locations provides a different type of jurisdiction in terms of the applicable performance standards. So I think it's not only important to know area of jurisdiction, but what type of jurisdiction, what the standards are, which are different for a stream versus a non-stream. So I might just suggest that, you know, it sounds like there's an additional map that we can't see tonight in a public hearing. It's not available right now. And there's some additional data that Mr. Ives has regarding the ephemeral stream, and I can provide information on the intermittent stream. So just a suggestion that perhaps this gets tabled until the next meeting so you can review all the relevant information, and we can have the plan up in front of all of us that we say exists, but we can't find it right now.
One question, what kind of additional data do you think I have?
You mentioned that you distinguish the stream as ephemeral versus intermittent. And I was wondering what kind of information you had to make that distinction.
Oh, it's just, it's a intermittent stream reach. You know, that's, I was using ephemeral as, it's ephemeral because it disappears. There's no bank at the bottom of the stream. It doesn't show a bank. And John is right. There's very little bank, inland bank on that stream. It's just a small preferential drainage path, as John said. That's what it is, inside a wetland.
Right. Well, again, I think there are two intermittent streams here, and it'd be nice to show them on the plan. And if the commission is interested in that information, we can certainly provide it.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe we'll be submitting any additional information. The information on the streams, the one intermittent stream in the southwest corner is clearly depicted, and the smaller one, I believe, that can be conditioned in the ORAD to protect the commission's jurisdiction and their ability to review this. With respect to performance standards, there should be no discussion of performance standards because there's no project in front of the commission. So I would respectfully request closure of the hearing this evening.
So I guess my only concern is in holding a public meeting, and these meetings have been challenging because of the remote meetings, not having engineers here with multiple pieces to show folks. We're now asking members to vote on a plan that's not in front of them. Am I wrong on that?
Well, yeah, believe that the latest plan set was sent out to the Conservation Commission as part of your packets. It just, the plan that you have that we're voting on was not provided to the commission in time to put it as part of this slideshow. So we're screening the plan version prior to a few minor revisions. Or Steve, you can summarize what those changes were. I think there something was left off and put on, and I'm not sure exactly what series that involved.
I can quickly summarize it. The lines that are shown on this plan are basically the boundaries that Steve reviewed and that I went out and modified based on Steve's review. The flags that changed were flags A52, which were shifted back towards the property line about 5 feet, and then flags A, 84, and 85. I think we removed flag 84 and connected 83 to 85, or we removed 85 and connected 84 to 86. But those have always been shown. The last plan that was shown was in response to a comment from Steve to show the originally approved boundaries with the new boundary overlain. So it was mainly a clarification so that we could easily see those areas that may have changed between 2012 and today.
Right.
So the plan that's in front of you right now, the actual boundary that we're requesting to be approved, there's no change in that with respect to the December 31st plan.
Correct.
I don't have a problem.
If we close, can we put in the conditions or of this, the notations that we've been discussing tonight?
Yes, so we can close and add a qualifier about the other resource areas that are within the boundaries of the resource areas on the plan. And we also would be approving the most recent version of this plan,
Okay.
which has the very small changes that John just reviewed.
Perhaps we could note
minutia.
the date on that, the signature date of the December 31st would
With
keep
the
that
signature
clear,
date of
too.
December 31st, yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Can I make a motion?
Do we have other hands up or are we good?
You've got Mr. Badger and Mr. Horsley.
All right, one more time, Mr. Badger.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
I just wanted to clarify that none of this plan was not on any of the documents that were on the website. And so for you to be acting on it or having a hearing about it when no one even can see it, I think is unusual at best. So that's my comment. And I just find it difficult for you folks to do this without any of the members seeing it and voting on it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Horsley.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Again, just going to make a similar comment. I don't mean to belabor this, but again, if the commission decides to move ahead with this, I think the minute should reflect that they're approving a plan that we cannot see tonight, as you've already indicated. And I don't see any, I would seem like, I would like to see where that stream is indicated on this plan. You're essentially approving a plan that we can't see, which is similar to the comment that Mr. Badger just made.
Got it.
I would suggest that either we pull the plan up tonight and look at it, or we continue to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. So, are there any other representatives from Bartlett's Field? John, are you the representative? It looks like Bill. That might be Bill Ornberger. Can you open that to him?
Hello?
Yes. Bill?
Yes, hi. Bill Arnberger. I represent the applicant. Driftway, Scituate, Mass. I concur with John Zimmer and also with Steve Ivas, the town's consulting engineer. All the applicable plans to vote on are part of the public record. They're here from the discussions which both the town's consultant and John Zimmer are saying is they're within the resource areas. So I respectfully disagree with Mr. Badger and Mr. Horsley. And I would encourage the commission to make the appropriate notifications on the, comments on the ORAD that have been discussed. And I respectfully request the commission to close the hearing and vote to approve the ORAD.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to close with the stipulations that Frank and Amy both discussed about the plan.
We have a second?
I'll second that, Doug.
Okay. All in favor? Richard?
Yes.
Doug?
I'm going to say yes and just add one comment. The reason why I'm okay with that, even though we're not seeing, I understand the concerns of the abutters there are not seeing that plan, but there's a reason why we spend the extra expense to hire a professional. In this case, it's Steve Ivas to do a peer review, to look at the technical details of the plans and explain that to the commission, because not all of us are going to be able to make those determinations in such a technical manner, even if it's just standard procedure that we have that, and that's the reason why we have that. So I want to just say that on the record, so I am not I'm not voting to close this blindly. It is with the advantage of an expertise that I'm trusting along with that vote. So that's
Okay.
the end of me.
Penny?
I vote yes, and I agree with what Doug just said. That's my feeling.
Thank you. Jen?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm stealing all of Doug's words, but I really appreciate the clarification that he's called out, and I vote yes. I get that it's definitely challenging for some people to follow or understand, but I echo Doug's sentiments.
Thank you, Jen. Andy?
Yes.
Okay. Brendan?
Yes.
And I'd vote yes as well. I do want to get that additional information to Mr. Badger and Mr. Horsley so that they can have that. But I think that what we're approving now is pretty straightforward, and as this project, if it becomes a project, evolves, we're going to see a lot more of these different areas. So, okay. All right. Thank you. 4 Cliff Estates Road. This is Morse Engineering. Do we have somebody from Morse? Oh, Bill has a hand up.
Yes, this is Greg Morse. I'm here.
Greg, hold on one second. Bill, do you still have a hand up for something? Can we unmute him, Amy? Bill? Oh, it looks like he took it down.
Okay. Yes, my question is, I know the hearing was closed. What I was unclear from the vote, because we asked that the commission vote to approve the ORAD. Was that part of the vote that just occurred?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Greg?
Good evening. For the record, Greg Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering. This is a continued notice of intent for a property located at 4 Cliff Estates Road. The property owner, David and Katrina DeRubo. I presented this to the commission back in December, and as you likely recall, it's a notice of intent for their single-family home. What they're proposing to do is a series of small additions to the house. There's a deck addition off the back of the house. There are some bump outs to the foundation that are overhanging over the foundation that are proposed in certain locations. There are some upgrades to the landscaping, including installing a pervious driveway parking space in the front of the house, a pervious paver area within the existing shell driveway that's out there, and then adding a pervious paver patio as well. When I presented this to the commission before, I was requested to go back and look at the site and see if there was any sort of mitigation that we could offer. This site has been extensively built up in the past. In portions of the site certainly are within the 50-foot buffer zone. I went back to our wetlands consultant, Brad Holmes, and Brad Holmes has put together a planting plan for us. The back of this site is an embankment that goes down to the salt marsh, which is the blue wetland that you see on the plan there. Brad came up with a series of 47 plantings, some of them being grasses, some of them being shrubs and berry producing. So we've offered that mitigation with 47 additional plantings along that embankment, along the edges of the salt marsh there. Aside from that, the proposed additions in patio spaces are the same as was previously presented. I can jump back into any of the specifics if you want me to, or I'll turn it over to you.
I think I'm good. Anybody? We'll start with Richard.
Come back to me later. I'm good right now.
Okay. Doug?
I remember this couple from a few meetings ago. And I might have missed it, Greg, but what's different this time than last time you were here on this?
Planting plan.
The plantings.
Okay. Yes, we had a discussion about shoring up that slope with new
Yes.
plantings. Okay. Yes. Okay. So I am good. And who? Brad Holmes helped you with that?
Correct.
So okay. Good. No.
Yes, sir.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. Penny?
Nope, that's what we asked for, to shore up that embankment back there. The plantings definitely will help. Thank you.
Jen?
I guess I'm curious why the plants don't cover the whole back part of it, especially given some of the changes are on the far right side.
Sure. So the changes on the right side in the backyard, there's a proposed deck that's over area that's existing lawn, and then between the lawn and the wetland itself, there's a fence that's in place already at that location. And the embankment over there seemed fairly well stabilized. It is fully vegetated already at that location.
Okay.
So that's why he kept them further to the left side of the site.
Where it needed it.
And is it's a little, everything's a little small. Is the proposed, where's the generator moving from?
Sure. So the generator right now is in the back. It's right under the back right corner of the house where it says proposed deck.
Ah, okay.
It's right under that word proposed. So the generator right now is inside the 50-foot buffer.
Okay.
It's proposed to be relocated outside of the 50-foot buffer with this layout.
Okay. And all of that's lawn back there. I feel like we've seen those pictures before. Is the generator being put on, are you pouring a pad for that, or what is it being put on over by the garage entrance?
It sits on a concrete pad, correct?
Okay.
All set?
For now.
Sure. Andy?
I think I was late for this meeting and wasn't part of the initial hearings. Am I correct that I should sit this one out for the vote?
Unless you feel like you're informed enough to continue.
Yeah, I didn't catch up on this one, so I will step away from this one.
Thank you. Brendan?
I have no other questions.
Amy?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find my notes from last time, but I thought that we had some discussion about trying to provide some kind of stormwater treatment or infiltration on the site in addition to the plantings, Frank.
I don't remember that. I thought that we just talked about adding some additional, trying to get some plantings along that back slope was my recollection. We talked about the previous paver area and what they're doing with that. So I thought we were down to just
The plantings.
Just plantings, if memory serves me.
Yeah, that was a long night.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I do remember a little bit about that, Amy.
We touched briefly on stormwater. The project doesn't trigger any of the stormwater thresholds for the stormwater bylaw, but it was designed so all the patios, the walkways, the driveway, those all are pervious surfaces. They have a paver that's on top, and then underneath that is in excess of a foot of crushed stone, which would allow infiltration of any stormwater through those surfaces. When you look at the house, the additions to the house are extremely small additions to the house. There's no significant increase in stormwater runoff off of this site, and it discharges to land subject to coastal storm flowage, which typically you don't need to mitigate rates and volumes of runoff for. But again, all of the driveway, all of the patio, all of the walkways, they all are pervious surfaces with more than a foot of crushed stone beneath them. There's not going to be any significant runoff off of this site.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Thanks, Greg.
Anybody else? Any members want to add anything? Anybody in the audience for this? I'd take a motion to close it.
I make a motion to close.
I'll second.
That was Richard?
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor? Richard?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So now we're at 8 Newell Street. We're going to continue which one?
The dock.
The dock. It's the
Okay,
next
so that's the second one. So this is for the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And who's on for this?
John Zimmer.
Okay, John.
Frank, you'll remember I'm recused on this.
Got it.
All right. All right, can you hear me again?
I can.
All right, I had so much fun with the first one, I decided to stick around for another one. Again, for the record, my name is John Zimmer with South River Environmental, representing the Winds. I unfortunately was not part of the original filing for the pool, nor was I able to attend the field review with the commission. But Chris and I went over it, in depth, and we talked about some ways that we could address some of the commission's concerns with respect to the pool. And what we've come back with is a revised design, which basically decreases the size of the pool and the surrounding porous paver patio to about 850 square feet total. We've relocated the pool. You can see it's been shifted, so it's no longer a rectangle shape. It's now a kidney, and we've fit it within basically the footprint of the existing pool and the disturbed area around the decking. And that's really to offset the distance from the work to the coastal bank associated with the South River. What we've also done is designed a coastal dune enhancement plan. So we're looking at doing about 3,700 square feet of enhancement to the coastal dune. I'm not sure if you folks remember the site, but there's not a ton of vegetation out there. It's a coastal dune. It's functioning to some degree, but I think that with what we're proposing to enhance the dune, it is going to help it function. And part of that is through removal of, there's a small concrete wall along the southern limit of it where it says basically top of coastal bank. That's a small concrete wall that we're going to remove. We've also proposed about 2,000 plugs of American beach grass to be planted in the dune, as well as some bayberry shrubs and some red cedar to not only help stabilize the dune, but also to provide some additional wildlife habitat. The material that would be excavated for the pool would actually be put back onto the dune, so we wouldn't be removing any of the material from the dune itself. The pool would basically be at grade. So right now, the existing pool is somewhat above ground. So we really would not have an adverse effect on the ability for coastal floodwaters to move through the site. We wouldn't be displacing any volume laterally off the property. It would basically be able to move right through. Whereas today with the existing pool, there's a little bit of displacement since it's an above ground structure. I provided a letter to the commission where I walk through all the performance standards associated with coastal dunes and how the revised design met those performance standards with respect to both coastal dune and land subject to coastal storm flowage. I'm happy to walk through it. I don't know if you folks had a chance to look at it or if you just want to open up it up to discussion and kind of talk through it. Happy to do whatever the commission would like.
Okay. Well, why don't we start with questions from commission members? Richard's reclused. Doug?
I was looking for the plan itself in my email here so I could pull it up and look a little bigger. Oh, here we go. Okay, this is in a flood zone as well. Is that correct?
It's land subject to coastal storm flowage, correct.
So there's a BFE associated with the flood zone?
Yes, 10.82 it looks like.
So I'll say that this is the first in-ground pool that I've been involved with since I've been on the commission. And what I'm curious is if an in-ground pool is considered a structure, and that would have to be elevated above the BFE. Like, I don't know, it's a concrete in-ground pool, right? Is that considered the same as another structure? And this is more of a question than an instructional comment. I'm not familiar with how that works in a pool. Maybe you could help me with that, Amy?
Yes, our interpretation is that it is a structure.
So wouldn't that have to be, and I know that ruins an in-ground pool. I'm just trying to understand the regulations, is that it's no longer an in-ground pool, but can a structure be placed in a BFE? Or is it because it's in ground, we don't consider that it's as hazardous as, say, if it was like a house in a flood situation?
No, our professional our professional colleagues have recommended that this would be a structure and that it would need to meet those BFE requirements.
Which you really couldn't do, like I said, with an in-ground pool. And I do remember this, and I'm glad they made the kidney-shaped pool. It was much closer to the bank before, so they've done a good job pulling everything away.
So I guess my question on this is, if that's considered, it's a concrete structure, with that's basically subsurface, how's that different than a distribution box or something associated with a septic system? Would that also be considered a structure? I mean, I would think it's the same form and, well, not function, but same form. I mean, where does the definition of structure get differentiated? I mean, I understand that's kind of a extreme example because you're not going to elevate a distribution box above the base flood elevation, but thinking along those types of lines.
Yeah, well, and you're getting to the heart of my own question, John. That's what I'm trying to figure out, that we
and
yeah, because
sorry to interrupt you, Doug.
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe, and Chris is on the meeting. I believe he did speak with the building inspector about this, either building inspector or Board of Health, and I'm not sure if Chris could provide any more detail with respect to that.
Well, and what I'll do, let me go ahead and pass on to other commissioners because they may have other questions besides that. But I'm just trying to figure out, since it's the first time I've seen something like a pool, but we did have a similar application. I think that's probably still in front of us, and there was going to be a hot tub. It was actually in a velocity zone, but it's like, how do we regulate those kind of things, and what standard are we supposed to adhere to? And that's my my question. So let me pass on to others so they can have a chance to discuss that.
Penny?
I have so many issues with this whole site, starting with the easement that is no longer an easement. The street's supposed to go all the way to the river. Right now, I'll focus back in on the pool. A pool was put in, an above ground pool, no permitting. It wasn't Mr. Wynn. Mr. Wynn inherited this property. But there is so much wrong going on, and I just don't see an in-ground pool being that close to the river. The river floods. If he wanted to put, I possibly could go along with putting another above ground pool in that spot. And Doug, if you had been out to the site, this is the way they've moved this pool. It was better where it was originally. It was more protected. It was right against the decking and so forth. Now it's out in a more open area. I just can't abide by in-ground pool in this area. If you even went down there and walked this backyard in the river, and you'd see the river there, it's like, you got to be kidding me. I don't think pools belong there at all. And from the stuff I read from, I can't remember her name now. My mind just went blank.
CZM.
Yeah, CZM, that this is not what we should be putting down on the river. And like I said, I also have an issue. It shows on the plan this easement down to the river, and the easement, there's a stone wall in the front. So the water, when it comes down Central Ave, comes down Newell Street, it can't get back to the river because there's a stone wall out front there. And I know Mr. Wynn didn't put it there, but there's so much wrong going on down here. Stuff that was done that never should have been done. And so the water backs up, probably floods the people back on Newell Street. And that's supposed to be an easement for people to use. And it certainly is not an easement. There's the stone wall, then there's some trees in the front, and as you go along his house, you can see on the plan part of the house is in the easement. I don't expect them to ever move that. But then the rest of the easement is loaded with kayaks and sheds, and there's a lot going on down there that doesn't belong, and I just can't go along with an in-ground pool on top of everything else.
Okay. Jen?
A lot's already been said. I echo Penny's thoughts on the pool. I am a little, if there's a rationale to adding a proposed shed, what looks like in the 50-foot buffer, like what the rationale for needing that is, when there's other spaces on the property, it could be good to understand that.
John?
I think that is where and Chris can chime in here, but I believe that that's where, kind of the best location is for the shed within the property, that still keeps it close to the existing structures within the site. I'd have to defer to Chris as to whether or not he'd be open to relocating that within the property.
Because there's a lot of lines happening here, so it's very possible that I'm missing it, but there's I just couldn't get behind putting something new within the 50, especially, and I don't know if this has come up yet, but it also looks like we're proposing getting rid of a couple like mature trees as part of putting in this new pool. Is there like
I think those trees are actually already gone. This was an old base plan that Bob Crawford had pulled together. So I don't believe that those trees are there right now.
What does gone mean? Like dead or like removed?
I think they were removed prior to Mr. Wynn acquiring the property.
But did you mean before or after he acquired?
I think before he acquired it.
Yeah, I guess those would be my concerns and thoughts.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, I mean, the pool in the dune there doesn't sit well with me. Kind of, reading about impacts about how it would limit the ability of the dune to do what it needs to do in simplest terms. I mean, as we think about projects here, I like the addition of the grasses. I like the removal of the concrete wall, but I don't know that I support the pool.
Okay, thank you. Brendan?
I think everything that's been said, I'm pretty much in agreement with. I think, I'm really quite concerned about this pool and whether or not it's a structure or not, and I guess also the shed and everything. So, I mean, we're putting an in-ground pool in a dune. Remember the original? I think the original one was a lot closer, but this still, for me, this is an issue.
Okay. Thank you. Amy?
Yeah, so thanks for getting us a little bit more information on this. And it has been, a bit of time since we've had this one in front of us. In fact, we had the site visit was in July. I think it was July 21st. We met out there and took a look, at just what was going on. And, the property definitely has undergone some rehab since Chris purchased the property. I think it might have been well needed, with potentially the decks being in some somewhat failure. But so if you look at the, and the plan is really, really tough to distinguish what's going on because there's so much kind of smushed in here. But I mean, so on the right side is the river with your mean high tide and edge of salt marsh coming right up to kind of a low-lying wooden kind of wall that distinguishes the salt marsh from the yard. And then it goes right into these wraparound porches onto the dwelling, and then with a series of a couple different outbuildings that have also been rehabbed. But anyway, so one of the things discovered while looking at the former above ground pool location was that the footings for the deck had been replaced. So there was some work had already been done, and that the above ground pool was in disrepair and was ready to be replaced. We did not find any permits for the pool, so I think that pool just came to be at some point in time before Chris owned the property. As far as alternatives for a pool on the property, I mean, clearly this is, it was nested in this area before. I can see, like Penny said, potentially allowing an above ground to go back where one had been, or maybe just clean the whole area up and maybe a spa on top of the deck. That way you're going to meet your BFE requirements. The enhancement looks good. I mean, that's a nice improvement. Agree with Penny that Newell Street access way should be restored. There's a bunch of stuff stored in there. Also, we did receive calls from an abutter today with concerns about the pool and the cedar trees. How is the equipment going to get back there and out of there? Concerned with damaging the resource areas, getting the equipment in, and what's the plan for it? And how would a pool get into that location anyways, and where would the pool drain to? Those were those comments. So, Frank.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience? I think Mr. Nguyen is there with his hand up, so why don't we let him add to this? No, we're not getting any voice.
I think his audio is on phone, so his audio may be one of those phone lines. I'm not sure which one.
Give us a second, Mr. Nguyen.
We've got Chris on, but no. Oh, here we go. Chris, are you on now?
I just came off the phone and on the computer. I hope you can hear me now.
We got you. Thank you. Yep. Mr. Nguyen, we can hear you.
He's not speaking.
Can you hear us now?
Hi, folks. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, thanks. I had to switch. I was on the phone.
Sure.
Your audio. Yeah, a number of points were raised, and let me try to address some of those along the way. Let me start with the location of some of the items here. And as a few of you have mentioned, obviously there is a lot going on down here, a lot of which I've inherited, and we're trying to. Part of what the plan here is to do both both clean things up, but do it in a way that we're being thoughtful of those that are abutting the property. So, for instance, the shed and the goal for having a shed and the location of the shed The location isn't really of material concern to us per se, but the Paquettes who live immediately next to us spent a number of years where there was a big metal building here blocking all of their views from the river. And what we were basically, as the building is raised and there's no storage, we were just looking for a place for some bikes and barrels to make sure that animals aren't getting at trash and things of that nature. And the proposed location there, we certainly can move it. The goal was to put it behind something so that we weren't creating any more line of sight obstructions for the neighbors here, so they can see the river, the water, and so forth. And the reason for this side of the property is we're just trying to navigate, if you see in the middle of that, navigate away from the existing building where there's a septic. So just trying to keep away from that hazard. And as Penny had mentioned, as you start to get towards the main house over there, there was a lot going on over there, all of which is, certainly predates our ownership, and none of that is, is our stuff and things that are there. So we're open to, assisting and participating, but if there's really, we were focused on the south side of our property, where that is something that, that we have the ability to control how we, control and fix it up. With respect to the in-ground pool versus an above-ground pool, the above-ground pool there, I don't know the exact year that got put in, but as a young man going up and down the river many years ago, I'm no longer that young man, we would see people as going by on the boat that there was a pool there. I can't know the exact year that was, but so there's been a pool there for quite some time. The reason for a relocation of the pool in somewhat is I was trying to get it away from the house for safety reasons predominantly, just so, and I mentioned this in the prior meeting, I have a teenage son and a soon to be, a couple years soon to be a teenager, and I didn't want anyone getting the brilliant idea. The front of the property has a roof deck with stairs going up, and I just didn't want anyone getting the brilliant idea of going up on the roof and trying to jump into a pool and having a safety consideration where the kids had friends over and somebody got hurt doing something stupid. So I was trying to take the potential of that out of the equation. So that was the primary reason for trying to move it away, and it's basically a foot away from the existing wooden deck there. With respect to an above ground versus the in ground, the reason we were under the impression, whether it's correct or mistaken or not, that by going with either an in-ground or semi in-ground approach, that we were mitigating a flow issue. So by having a structure that's 54 inches off the ground, or whatever the existing pool is somewhat submerged, but it's it's a 4.5 feet high, or whatever the normal height of an above ground pool is. That does be, the water has not come up there that high since I've been there, but of course, if the water were to come there, it's going to hit that and bounce off. We were looking at having something that was lower as being something that was mitigating that approach along the way, and of course, the location of why we're trying to do it nestled within the deck there goes back to my earlier statement with the next door neighbors, the Paquettes, in that while there's a potential that it could be somewhere else on the property, we're trying to keep it so that the pool is not intrusive and in the way of people relaxing and enjoying their deck as well. So that's kind of why we ended up in the same vicinity of where it is, both to keep things noise down, things like the pool filter, as well as the kids themselves. So that was the location and the geography. With respect to the structure of the pool, we actually weren't considering a concrete or gunite pool. We were thinking more along the lines of a fiberglass pool that would be dropped in and craned in. So to answer the question as to the amount of work that would go on there, we're trying to keep that to a minimum, or a liner pool that has composite framing that creates the kidney shape there. So we were not contemplating a 20-foot slab of concrete in the ground there. Are there any other additional questions that I can answer about location and an approach and so forth?
I think you've elaborated pretty well with that. Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Nobody's raising their hand, Frank.
Okay. Any commission members want to, any other questions for Mr. Nguyen or Mr. Zimmer?
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I fully understand and appreciate the commission's concerns with the project and the resource area, and the sensitivity of coastal dunes and land subject to coastal storm flowage. I don't know if any of the commissioners had a chance to read the letter that I provided, documenting and providing background as to how the project would comply with the performance standards under the Act and the bylaw. I heard and understood your concerns, but none of those were really relative to the performance standards, and that's really what I'd like to get down to see, regardless of the ultimate decision, whether or not the project would comply with those, because that's really what it comes down to, in my opinion, is does the work that we're proposing comply with the performance standards of the regulations? So if the commissioners haven't had a chance to look at it, that's fine. What I would recommend with Chris's approval is maybe we continue it to the next hearing to allow you a chance to kind of take a look at it, and then we can walk through it and answer any questions you may have on it. But I guess I would just throw that out there for consideration.
Okay. This is a tough one. We have a hard time. I think if we were conditioning a house in this location now, would that be on piers?
Yes.
Yes.
So if that house were to be conditioned today, it would be on piers. I get your comment on the septic system, except that septic systems are fairly small obstruction and pretty necessary, although we have asked people to put septic tanks up on the piers now, John, as well. I also get that this is a pretty altered area. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on here. And you're offering mitigation in those two spots to do this, but we still have that kind of hang up of sort of altering this area. And I maybe just, if you want to elaborate just a little bit more tonight on why you don't feel that does that.
Sure, I can. Do you want to look at coastal dune or land subject to coastal storm flowage first?
It's up to you, as long as it's not too lengthy.
All right, there are basically 6 main performance standards associated with work within a coastal dune, and it's consistent between the Act and the bylaw. The first is, would it affect the ability of the waves to remove sand from the beach? there's not really a beach here to begin with, but being at grade, there would be no adverse effect on the ability of waves to move material from the dune itself. So that performance standard is met. Disturbing the vegetated cover as to destabilize the dune. There's not actually a lot of vegetation out there, especially in the area that we're proposing to put the pool. Plus, we're proposing over 4-to-1 square footage of mitigation with plantings. So we would actually result in a net benefit by revegetating the dune. So we would actually improve the ability of the resource to meet that performance standard. The third would be causing any modification of the dune form that would increase the potential for storm or flood damage. The existing pool is above grade right now. That would be removed. We'd be putting the new pool in at grade. So basically, you would allow the storm waters to flow through the property in a easier manner, so to speak, than it does currently. So we feel like we've met that performance standard as well. The fourth is interfering with landward or lateral movement of the dune. Again, the movement of the dune is going to be to the south and to the, I guess that would be the east. There's really no work proposed in those areas. And we're actually removing an existing concrete wall, which is at the base of the dune. So that would actually allow better movement of the dune materials to the southeast, where it says top of coastal bank there. The fifth one is causing removal of sand from the dune artificially. We're not proposing to remove any material from the dune. We'll actually, any of the materials removed for the pool would be replaced on the dune itself. So there would be actually no removal of material from the dune. And then the last one is interfering with mapped or otherwise identified bird nesting habitat. You're not having any significant species of birds nesting within the property aside from basic songbirds. That's really with respect to nesting shorebirds and rare species. So that performance standard is met. So that's really it for the coastal dune. For land subject to coastal storm flowage, it's any activity should not have an adverse effect by increasing the elevation or velocity of floodwaters or by increasing flows due to a change in drainage or flowage characteristics. By removing the existing above ground pool and putting the new pool in at grade, that's going to be a net zero or a net benefit in the ability of the waters, the flood waters coming from the South River to move through the property. So we don't feel like there's an adverse effect on that ability. And then the other was with respect to sea level rise and tops of foundations. This one's really meant to be associated with home constructions and foundations associated with homes or significant structures. As Chris said, there's really not a foundation, so to speak, associated with it. So we really don't feel like that one is applicable. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. We proposed the mitigation here to try to have the overall project result in a net benefit to the ability of the resource areas to function, to protect the interests of the act and the bylaw. I think that's why we propose, such a high mitigation ratio. We feel like we meet the performance standards. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have. I know I ran through that pretty quickly, but I didn't want to take up too much of your time.
No, I appreciate it. We have other hearings to go on. So the option here is to.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
All right. We wouldn't allow a foundation there. Okay? To me, a pool, a fiberglass pool, you're digging a hole in the dune, you're dropping in a hard surface. We wouldn't allow you to put a foundation in. So why should I allow you to put in a fiberglass? You can call it, I'll call it a foundation. That's gonna hold water, okay? We wouldn't allow a foundation. So I don't see why I would allow a fiberglass, I don't care whether it's gunite or fiberglass, pool there. And to be honest, the above ground pool, that's been flattened for a long time. It's just a bundle of aluminum or whatever it is on the ground right now. So that isn't causing any problem. I don't think there should be anything there except the house up on stilts the way it is. I mean, I really wish the rest of the board, the commission, had been out to that site when Amy and I were out there, because you have to see it to appreciate how upset I am about the thoughts of a fiberglass pool going in that backyard.
Penny, we do have some photos that Jen might be able to share. Here we go.
I thought you were going to ask a question.
I was. Would you allow a foundation? No, we wouldn't
Okay.
allow a foundation. So I guess I was making a statement. To
Okay.
me, that's a foundation. And plus, it makes me ill. I mean, this at least was in kind of a little protected area with the decks around it, the above ground pool, but where you're putting it, you're going out into the yard now. I'm very upset.
Okay. Anybody else?
Go swim in the river.
Penny.
I know, but you got the river on one side, the
Well,
ocean on the
all right.
other.
But somewhere cross between.
I think you guys could take a motion to close.
Well, you can see the trees behind the pool.
I
Now,
got
if you where they're proposing the pool to go now, they're going to remove those trees. Yes, one's dead. The other ones don't look too dead to me.
Okay.
And that's where they're going to be putting the pool,
Okay.
what they're asking for.
All right. John, what were you suggesting as an alternative to closing tonight?
Well, what I recommended was to allow the commission a little bit more time to review the information that I provided with respect to compliance with the performance standards. And
Okay.
if we continue to allow that, and we'll see if there's anything else we can do on our end to address some of the concerns the commission has.
So are you requesting a continuance or?
But I'd like to get Chris's opinion on that. I think my sense is that if we close tonight, well, it's not going to go in our favor, and it may ultimately not. But I think that if we could take a little time to review the information, and just kick it around a little bit more, I think that would be appreciated.
Well, you have the right to request a continuance. Mr. Nguyen, can we let him speak? I can see your mouth moving, but not.
He's muted.
Yep.
I think your own
He
computer.
should be on.
Hit unmute, Chris.
There we go. Now,
Thank you. Yep.
great. Okay, so yeah, I appreciate the concerns that have been raised, and we talked about the prior meeting. Why not just do something right in the area that's there? And the two items that I had mentioned before was that safety consideration, and we thought that we were creating a net benefit, which John had articulated there. If the commission doesn't view it as a net benefit, I guess I'd more ask this in the form of a question: is what location of this would you view it as a net benefit? And I get that some have stated that no pool is a preference, but is an above ground pool versus an in-ground pool, is one more of a mitigated effort or mitigation than the other? It seems, and respectfully, we're going a little bit circular, and we're trying to do whatever we can do to comply. So we're coming upon a year from when we first submitted this application, and we've hired John and gone through a number of other items where we're offering, again, a 4-to-1 mitigation on this. I guess in you know, the, I guess the question is, you know, how do we get to a point where we're mitigating enough that we're satisfying the commission and, you know, not and adding benefit to the resource area? I'm not sure, just continuing it to a month or two down the road doesn't seem like it's necessarily changing anyone's opinion on it. So I'm trying to figure out how we, you know, get to more resolution as opposed to just, you know, waiting 2 months and throwing out ideas.
Frank, if you don't mind, I can speak for
Sure.
a second. I mean, I think that we respectfully disagree with John's opinion on impacts with the resource areas and performance standards. We could potentially hire a peer review so that we have another wetland scientist weigh in on this. But I mean, it's pretty clear that an in-ground pool or any structure in this location is going to have permanent impacts on a barrier beach, in a coastal dune, in the A zone, and that, you know, it's probably not something that should be allowed. So I guess that's where we're struggling, Chris. So I agree. I'm not so sure that continuing this is going to be beneficial for everybody. But Frank, you can speak.
Well, the only thing I would say is if continuing it for another meeting or two and another revision that we thought, I don't know how commission members feel about it, an above ground pool in a slightly different location. And I can't really say what would be approved or what wouldn't, but you've got one now in better or worse shape. So as Amy pointed out, that may have not been conditioned, but it's there. And you're proposing to, I try to look at things and say, well, what's the gain from that? And the coastal enhancement in those areas is certainly a positive one. So maybe there's a way to come up with something for Mr. Wynn that will work for his family without coming up against regulations that we feel are correct. I would think, given that you've already got a filing open, so you can amend your plan and come back.
So with the, and I obviously recognize that everyone would have to vote and see something and not deal with a conceptual question, but you know, assuming a pool of comparable size to the existing above ground pool as an above ground pool moved away from the house a few more feet, is that something that the commission would be more inclined to approve? So kind of nestled in that same area. But again, really the biggest thing for me is literally a safety thing. It's too close to the house. It's just not where it is. While it mitigates a certain aspect of it, it creates more problems than it solves by having it right there.
So let me ask sort of just a general question, Amy. If Mr. Wynn were to come forward with a pool, an above ground pool in the location that he's proposing the in-ground pool, do you feel that that's a permittable project with the mitigation that they're proposing? And maybe we both
well,
need.
I think that. I think you would take the angle of pre-existing non-conforming and you're just replacing something that you already have there. Although, I mean, it's not great because never had permits before, but.
Doug?
Well, yeah, I do. I guess here's where I fall out on this, because I'm not, I do kind of agree with John's assessment that an in-ground pool is less obstructive to flow than an above ground pool because the water is going to go over the top of it. So, but let's just kind of set that aside because it's a small amount in any way you look at that of obstruction or non-obstruction of wave action. But what I'm looking at is, and this is and this is hard for me to answer this question. I guess it's, I don't want to put the applicant through additional expenses. But my question is the mediation. If he does this, there's a benefit to the coastal dune enhancement that's being done. And I think we probably all agree with that's a plus. Because if this project came in and that's all it was, we'd all be applauding the applicant for proposing to do coastal dune enhancement, I would imagine. If it is in fact a plus. So without the pool, he's probably not going to do the coastal dune enhancement. So I'm trying to think beyond this project. I'm just kind of thinking in general, like if we give an applicant something, if this is a more symbiotic kind of relationship here where they're getting something that they desire, but they're giving, something really back to the environment that's very beneficial, where at some point that pays off. And I'm trying to, what I'm struggling with, where is that line? Like it is, and the reason why I can't answer that question myself is because is that coastal dune enhancement, what does that really do for the environment? Is that a great benefit? Is that a moderate thing? Is it, the enhancement, is it going to stay put, or is it just going to disappear next time there's a extreme high tide, or like, and I don't have the answers to those questions. So that's where, but that's how I fall out on this, is say like, okay, if there's a net benefit, to the environment itself, that feels to me like we're doing our job. So, and and again, I can't answer that question. I'm just saying that that's what's hanging out for me about this whole application. I brought up the fact that it was a structure specifically to understand whether or not we can permit something like that. Because again, we have to think down the road to the next applicant that comes back for something similar. If that's a structure and it has to be elevated, well, it's sort of a moot point. So, but my real question is what I just described. It really has to do is by you putting in that pool and if you doing that, what you described as a 4-to-1 enhancement, is that a net benefit for the environment itself?
So can I, yeah. So Doug, sometimes we'll look at projects, folks will come with us with very little room to do things in such as this. Sometimes they're within a 50-foot buffer. We just had the project on Cliff Estates Road and they wanted to do some additional work. So we asked them for plantings on the slope and things like that. And that was sort of a way to balance out their encroachment a little bit. And they did those, they're proposing to do those plantings. So you're right. This question would be about this. However, you also have the parameters of having a coastal dune and these other resources. So it gets a little trickier in the location where we're at.
Yeah, I agree.
So I guess that's where I look at it. I'd like to get the enhancement. I'd like to see the improvements there. I think Mr. Wynn's been working hard at cleaning up some earlier messes in that area. And, to your point, in one way, if the pool's below grade, things just wash over, and what difference does it make? However, it puts a substantial structure down, and what we have to think about is if there's kind of more severe erosion, at some point the pool does become an obstruction.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of back and forth there. I don't know whether you want to take that a space of one more before one more meeting to John to talk that over with Mr. Wynn and see if we can come up with something that might work out. I don't really want to do it on the fly here.
I think that would be my preference, but obviously it's Chris's decision as to whether or not he wants to continue again.
No, I mean, certainly, folks, I'm fine. And again, the you know, the goal is, obviously we want to have a pool. We want to respect the resources. We want to respect the neighbors. We want to respect the neighborhood. And I want to do it in a way that it's safe. So, I have an 80-year-old father and a 70-year-old mother. I don't want them walking by the deck and fall into the pool. Right. It's things that are just, and again, as I've said with the children. So I'm just trying to, it's a unique situation, which I greatly appreciate and understand, where there's not all the things can line up perfectly. So it's almost like, I feel it has to be looked at as a net benefit because, you're changing one thing to another to fix an existing situation. I mean, as the pool is, is beat up. I mean, the pool certainly could have a liner thrown right back in it. I mean, it's not, but it's just not, it needs, all the things a pool needs to be fixed, like filters and all that other stuff. So it's not, it's not what I'm suggesting that I'm going to go out and rehab the existing pool. But what we are open to, size, location, above ground, in ground. It seems like the challenge that we're having is we're trying to fix one issue, but the fix of that issue creates yet another one, and we're trying to weigh the net benefit of those. And again, I'm happy to go back with John and also Mr. Crawford and come up with some other thoughts and ideas. I'm just trying to find a way to get us to that net spot where everybody feels more comfortable.
Okay. Well, we've got a few more hearings to do tonight, and we've kind of knocked this one around for a bit. You've got a sense from different commission members, and why don't you give that a little bit of thought? And if you want to get back to the commission or Amy with some questions, we'll do our best to answer those and see what we can figure out. All right?
Sounds good. All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right. So do we want to continue this for
How long?
how far out?
March 15th
Okay.
or March 1st.
March 1st. Yeah, that's
Well,
fair.
wait a minute. It was going to be the same as the next one. Yeah, which was March 1st.
Is that the pool?
Although I think maybe they
The
should
dock.
both go to March 15th, actually, at this point.
3:15.
The dock was going to be continued to
The 15th.
Well, to put them both on the 15th.
can we work with that?
That's fine. There's no.
Okay. All right. I'd like to get a motion to continue 8 Newell Street pool to, go ahead, Penny.
I make a motion to continue 8 Newell Street, the proposed pool, to March 15th.
Have a second?
Second, Doug.
Doug. Okay, all in favor? Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
So now I need a motion to continue 8 Newell Street dock.
Make a motion, we continue 8 Newell Street, proposed dock, to March 15th.
Second.
That was Doug?
Yes.
Yeah. So all in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you. Thanks a lot. 90 Glades Road, it's an amendment. If somebody from Cavernaro.
We've got Brendan on the line.
Okay.
Yeah, Frank, you need to read the opening of the public hearing for this.
On January 6, 2021, 5:15 meeting of the Townhouse, Situate Conservation Commission, all the wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws and Section 32050 of the Town of Situate Stormwater Bylaw to amend the order of conditions and stormwater permit issued under DEP file number 68-2779 regarding the application of Stephen and Rita Pace to construct a new single-family dwelling at 190 Glades Road, Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the posted website. Good evening. So we let Brendan in. You there?
He's,
Yep,
he's
can
all
you hear me
he's
now?
all set now. Hi, Brendan.
Okay, great, thank you. For the record, Brendan Sullivan with Kevin Consulting.
You're a little muted, Brendan. Can you turn your volume up, please?
Turn my volume up. Is that better?
I think I can hear you, yeah.
Okay.
That's better.
All right. Once again, Brendan Sullivan with Kevin Consulting. For the record, registered professional engineer and land surveyor. Here with the new owners of the property, Stephen and Rita Pace, currently live over on Surfside Road in Scituate. Also on the line, I have Brad Holmes from ECR Environmental and Charlie Page, the landscape architect. Brad will go over some of the mitigation, the change in the mitigation plan that we have done for the area in and around the wetlands and the coastal bank. This project was originally approved back in April of 2019 as a similar single-family home, auto court, septic system, and landscape improvements. It went through the notice of intent process and the stormwater process as well. And since we're running these kind of concurrently, I'm going to kind of marry those two and kind of talk about both of them at the same time, if that's okay.
Yep.
So since the project was approved, the previous owner, who was the abutter, Mr. Burek, put in the landscape, put in the siltation barrier fence, siltation barrier, the silt sock, took some trees down, installed the septic system, the septic field, the tanks, septic tanks were installed. And then since then, he has sold the property in spring of last year, May or April of last year, when the Paces purchased the property. They've come forward with a different house design, basically the same orientation of the main house, and with the L-shaped garage coming off of the southwest portion of the house, and typical same auto court with access to Glades Road. The only difference is really they have a pool in the backyard, and they've rotated the house a little bit, and it's gotten a little bit closer to the wetlands. I think it used to be 72, now it's about 62 feet away from the isolated vegetated wetland that sits basically on top of this knob. So moving forward, we've mitigated the stormwater runoff to the street with infiltration systems, capturing the roof runoff from the driveway. We have some TSS removal, stormwater controls in place. And so we've mended the house grading into the existing septic system. And we've also, we do have comments from Merrell Associates that we just got. I was on vacation last week. I wasn't able to get my arms around them, but reading through them, there are, they're minor in nature. I can go through them if the board would like, but really, like they're minor in nature. The biggest comment really is that about some of the stormwater controls for the driveway. I have to incorporate some additional stormwater controls to get our TSS removal adequate for Glades Road. The other one was he's looking for a test pit for by infiltration bed number 3, which is next to the garage, just east of the garage. I believe I have a test pit over there from some of the previous testing we did for the original Board of Health plan. So as I said, the house is similar in nature to the last project. The last project, I believe we had about 1,600 cubic yards of ledge to be removed. This one's a little bit less. I've come up with about 1,200 or 1,300 cubic yards of ledge to be removed, mainly because a good portion of the basement of the new dwelling is going to have a crawl space. It's not going to be a full basement for the entire footprint of the house. So we have a good amount of crawl space in there, so that will alleviate some of the ledge removal. So I think with that being said, maybe I'll turn it over to Brad, if you could unmute him, and he can talk about the mitigation, the new mitigation plan we have for the isolated wetlands in the coastal area as well. One other thing is, so when I originally designed this, stormwater wise, modeling it, I have the isolated wetlands. It has it modeled as a small detention pond. Now it does fill up and overflow into the Atlantic Ocean. Now it does, during the 2-year event, it almost fills up. So during the 10 and 100-year event, it does fill up and overflow into the Atlantic Ocean. So for that reason, I don't believe I have to match pre and post velocities and or volume of flow, because it's all on our properties contained, and it is flowing eventually over the outlet into the Atlantic Ocean. But I think that's about it from my end. If anyone has any questions, like I said, I can turn it over to Brad, and he can go over the mitigation plan with you as well.
Okay, Brad?
Yeah, let's go to Brad.
Sure, thanks, guys. Happy to help on this project. So I was involved to take a look at the mitigation plan that was approved and compare it to current conditions and see if it was still effective and get my thoughts on it. So after reviewing the area, the wetland itself is in really good condition. It's recovered. I think there was some work out there historically. The buffer zone as well. So that the planting plan that was approved would really involve probably more disturbance by trying to remove vegetation in order to get that amount of vegetation planted. So what I've done is crafted a mitigation plan that includes removal of invasives. It includes buffer enhancement, and it also includes a coastal grasslands enhancement area. Oh, great. So you have it. I was just going to ask you to pull it up. So the wetland itself is fairly clean and free of invasives, but the buffer zone surrounding it has got a moderate amount of invasive shrubs and vines. So what we're proposing to do is, generally that area in red, we would go through that area and remove the invasives selectively and get that out so that we can release the native vegetation. And we'd also do interplanting with native shrubs within the wetland and within the buffer zone to enhance the area. I've included a plant list in the left-hand side of the page. We'd also do some pruning and some removal of just, even though they're native, you have a lot of grapevines that are pulling and strangling trees that could really be removed to allow those trees better form, and also a little bit of pruning up there. That area gets really beat up from the wind, and you get wind throws. So some of the trees could use some work just to improve the form and remove some of the dead limbs. And the area in yellow now is basically a mowed, I wouldn't say it's a field, because it's really just mowed shrubbery, low growing shrubs. And it's probably, I don't know how often it's mowed, but it's routinely mowed by the looks of it.
So what we're looking to do is to try to create a coastal grassland there. It's more of a meadow and a better habitat for bird species in the area. So what we'd like to do there is to add some native grass plugs and seed mix and kind of maintain that area more of a coastal grassland habitat. We'd maintain the pathways so that there's access throughout the area, but we limit the mowing so that it would be an annual mow to maintain the field habitat. So there's more detail to the mitigation plan for the wetland and the buffer and the grassland that I could certainly go over with you, but that's the gist of it, is not just to focus on the IVW and the buffer, but to treat all the buffer zone area and improve the entire site.
So with that,
Thanks,
maybe
thanks, Brad.
Sure.
So can we want to move this to members? Penny?
I like it. Looks good. I like the idea of the meadow out back there before you hit the rocks. No, I'm happy with it.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah, I really like the mitigation plan a lot. And the only thing I don't remember from when we were out there before was actually the pool. Was that part of the original plan, or is that new?
That's new, I think.
the pool is new.
No.
Okay, and do you have any specifics on that, or is this just not the plan that separates that out?
As far as what, it's approximately 16 by 40 feet, has a spire in one corner. It is going to have an infinity edge, I believe, going off to the north. That little notch out there, heading towards the wetlands, will be an infinity edge.
Above ground, of course.
Well, yeah, the infinity edge will be above ground, but the pool and the patio itself will be just about a step below first floor elevation.
Okay.
At about, I think we have 28.7 there. The first floor is at 29.5, so we're about a step below.
Okay. I don't have any questions about the rest, Frank. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Doug?
First, a procedural question, because this will happen in other cases. I didn't realize this is reviewed by Merrell. The reason why is because I'm not involved in review process at that company at all. So I just want to declare I don't have to recuse myself on projects like this, do I? Or do you think it would be best if I do? They're the reviews consultant. They do these on several projects, but again, I'm not involved in that whatsoever.
So I think the feedback that I got from the Attorney General's office was that if you feel that you can be impartial and do your job as a commission member without concern, then we're fine with that. That's how I look at it. I think disclosure that you do work with Merrell is, and I've had this situation with different people that come in that we work with, and as long as I feel I can be impartial, then I think you're fine to go forward, Doug.
Okay, all right. Well, because I think what I like about it too is the mitigation plan. A lot of removal of invasive species and replanting. Seems like it's a substantial project. It's probably going to be a beautiful property when this is done. But I think that the mitigation, it looks to me like that's a good offer to have to offset a lot of the development that's going on within the buffer zone there. So yeah, I think I'm good with it.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on it. I was trying to find the prior plan in my email, but this feels like a pretty big departure from, in terms of an increase in impervious from the original plan. Additionally, with regards to changes closer to the BVW, I would like to see an analysis of the difference between these two plans, especially given the amount of attention and number of meetings that were had around the initial plan. It felt rather exhaustive, and so I know all the other commissioners have said looks good, but to me, I just feel very apprehensive about it.
Okay. There was a review by Merrell. Did they address that? Do you remember, Amy or Brendan?
Well, so you haven't gotten to me yet, Frank, but so we are in mid-review with Merrell right now. So, you know, this project really is 100% different than the other project. So we're starting from scratch as far as the stormwater review goes. And we've got one, you know, the first portion of the comment letter back, but not a rebuttal from Cavanero yet. So there some certain points were brought up, but we're not through that yet. And this meeting really is just intended to present the project and kind of flush out some of your initial reactions, getting into more of the meat of the project probably at the next meeting, and hopefully closing it.
Okay. Can we add that, Brendan? Can you give us at the next meeting, or obviously prior to that, some sort of maybe overlay or something?
Yeah, definitely. Yep, I can do that. I mean, just so you know, the prior project, which included the house and the surrounding deck around it, as far as structure goes, was approximately 1,900 square feet within the 100-foot buffer. The new project, including the pool, patio, and the new structure, is about 2,900 square feet in the 100-foot buffer. So it's about a 50% increase. And the house itself is larger than the previous house as well.
Okay, Jen. But I think if you can give us some sort of overlay or whatever, just so visually we can see that would be helpful. Okay, is that what you're looking for? Jen, does that?
Yeah, I'm just not in favor of a bigger house and more disturbance in the 100-foot buffer.
Okay, got it.
Thanks, Brian.
Can we see, Brendan, when you do that, I forget if there was mitigation proposed on the last project, but if there was, we should know what that was as well, and how much greater this one is, if it is.
Yes, it is much greater. So basically, if you go back to the mitigation plan, the only mitigation we had was the section shown in red.
Yeah.
So the green and the yellow is all additional mitigation.
Okay.
Because if you remember, there was so what happened was there was, you know, this project years ago was approved.
Yeah.
It was actually there was a project prior to Mr. Burek who got a project approved, and then Mr. Burek, being the abutter, the house was going right in front of his view, so Mr. Burek purchased the property. Then he went ahead and once he purchased the property, got hold of the property, got control of the property, you know, went to permit a house that was, you know, conducive to his views and, you know, still keeping the views, you know, aesthetically pleasing for the proposed house. In the meantime, too, he did some cutting in the wetlands and the buffer zone. So then there was an enforcement order. So that's why there was, and that's why there was the enhancement plant, the buffer plantings, the mitigation wasn't for, if you remember, I think Penny can remember this, that maybe you too, Frank, as well, but the mitigation plantings weren't for the construction of the house itself and the disturbance within the 100. It was really for the cutting that he did in the 50-foot buffer and in the wetland area. So when we say we're doing the mitigation plantings, it's not for the proposed house. There was really no mitigation proposed for the original house. The mitigation was for to restore what was cut there years ago, and a lot of that, as Brad said, a lot of that has come back. Some of it good, some of it bad. So this plan kind of addresses all of that. We get out there, we started looking at some landscapers to try and do the mitigation. He's like, well, do you really want me to dig up plants to put in plants? That doesn't make sense. So that's why Brad came up with this plan to, weed out some of the bad ones and also supplement it with some good ones. And as you can see, like I said, I'll show you the original one was just the area in red. So this, you can see quadruples. I can get the areas for you, how much more mitigation we're doing there. So, but yeah, I can do an overlay of where the existing house was and all of that. And we can, we can go from there.
Okay.
Frank?
Yes, Richard.
Don't forget Andrew and Brendan on the other end of the table. And the other thing is procedurally, and maybe this can be answered later, this sounds like such a new project. Why is it an amendment?
Amy?
Well, it came in as a request to amend. Portion of the project was already started, and it was enough similar, so we took it as an amendment. The requirements are all the same. It's just the fee structure is different on the amendment. I mean, so we're not getting brand new fees. The applicant's getting quite a break on fees as taking it as an amendment. But in the end of the day, we will just hopefully be accepting a new, revised site plans and the stormwater documentation.
All right. Thank you, Amy.
Okay. Andy?
I mean, on the house, I'll wait for the meat as Amy described. I guess on the mitigation, just trying to understand the full impact. Brad, you had mentioned targeting some bird species with that grass plant in the yellow. Any insight into what you're looking to attract and build up there?
Well, we've lost so much in the way of coastal grasslands. So what this opportunity here is already almost there. It needs to be interplanted with native grasses and get rid of some Morrow's honeysuckle that's being mowed. So, I mean, we'll get a lot of shorebirds. I guess we'll get some, I think we get some hawks, but probably a variety of the species that are in that area. I know it's a lot of coastal shorebirds, but I wouldn't be able to tell you the exact species.
Thank you. I'm good, Frank.
Okay. Brennan?
A lot has been said. I have nothing additional to add.
Okay. Amy, do you want to add anything else on this one?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think this is a good introduction. Here's one for the grasslands. I mean, are we filling the voids and the nooks and crannies of the outcropping in order to establish this grassland? And is there going to be maintenance involved?
Once a year.
Sure, there's no
So it's going to be mowed? Is that what it's?
Right, an annual end of the season mow. But there isn't any filling or bringing or changing of grades proposed.
And why can't it just go natural?
Because over time it would just turn into a shrub area and eventually saplings, and we'd lose that grassland habitat. So we're trying to bring back some coastal grasslands. There's a decent amount of invasives in there too that will they'd be happy if we left it alone.
Okay, yeah, so I think that I'm good for now, Frank.
Okay. Anybody in the audience for this?
Raise your hand and we'll call on you.
No? I don't think I have any more. I mean, we're going to come back with that information. I think overall they've looked to an area. I think some of the grasslands are established to maintain a view, but if it provides a benefit that we think is worthwhile, then that's fine. That's how I see it. There's like a lot of scrub there and whatnot that they're going to want to keep down, so they'll do it with a grass piece. But this sits up fairly high on ledge, and so I guess that's just a matter of looking and thinking if that's a good offset to just leaving things alone and let it grow up.
Well, Frank,
Yes, Penny.
if you go back to the original, plans, they were much farther in on the piece of property. That's why the man next door bought it, because it was going to block his view. So we would have lost that area. So to me, it's great. The house is near the street, and now we're going to have some grasslands back there, and a house would have been back there. They were going to build way back on the property. So, all in all, I think in the third time up with this lot, this is the best I've seen as far as, nature out back being restored, and them having their big house and so forth and so on.
Well, it's a pretty substantial house, Penny, but I agree with you. I agree with you. This is a much better plan than the one that was proposed early on, and it's just and maybe this is a better scenario for wildlife out there. I mean, Brad seems to have done a good job with that, and I think.
Well, it's a variation.
Yep.
And instead of just having it all scruffy pines and this and that, this is something a little different. I think it's pretty exciting myself.
Okay. Okay. So how far out do we want to continue this to get that information, Brendan?
Let's see. When's your next meeting?
The next eligible meeting would be possibly February 8th or March 1st.
Let's go with the 8th.
Okay, I'll make a motion. We continue 190 Glades Road to February 8th.
So second?
Second, Doug?
All in favor? Richard?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Great. Frank, yes. So, and try to get us that information as early as possible, Brendan, so we can get it around to the commission members.
Yeah, I will. Maybe
Okay.
get a response back to Merrell as well.
Yeah, and Brendan, keep in mind that our new information deadline is going to be changing to 2 weeks out from a meeting.
Whoa.
So, so that it comes up pretty tight. So that's why I'm kind of wondering whether you're going to make it for the 8th, honestly. But
Oh yeah, I believe I will.
okay,
I mean,
great.
I'm hoping to have a back and forth with Merrell prior to then. And what you're asking for, I think, is fairly minor. So I could have those plans to you by, hopefully by like next week.
Perfect. Okay, thanks, Brendan.
Thank you.
All righty.
Yep. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So 150 First Parish Road, this is a request for continuation to March 1st.
I
And
make
this,
a motion. We continue 150 First Parish Road to March 1st.
second
Second from Jen.
from Jen. So all in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Doug,
Recused?
recluse, Penny,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan.
Yes.
Frank, yes, thank you.
Oh.
On January 6th, at 2001 meeting, during Scituate Town Hall, the Conservation Commission will act on the request of the Town of Scituate for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws for activities related to geotechnical subsurface exploration for Third Cliff revetment design from Townway Extension at end of stone revetment and off Collier Road on beach fronting at 43 and 49 Collier Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posts on the town website. Okay.
Frank, we have Dave Smith from GZA and Sean McCarthy online from
Great.
Department of Public Works.
Okay, thank you. Whichever one of you guys wants to go.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Sean McCarthy with the DPW. Yeah, I'm pretty much going to hand this over to David. We've hired GZA as our consultant to work us through a lot of the FEMA repair damage claims on Third Cliff. Once several of the review agencies got involved and we're looking for alternatives analysis, whether to repair what's there or make improvements to it. We brought GZA on, and David has been our lead engineer on this, David Smith at GZA, and he's here this evening to talk about some of the initial steps, which tonight's hearing is about, in order to get out onto the beach to do some borings in order to relay that into alternatives analysis if we do move some of the revetment structures landward, if we can. David, if you want to take off.
Sure. Thank you, Sean. David Smith from GZA Geoenvironmental. Sean covered about half of my presentation already, so that's good. But as Sean had said, GZA got involved in this project, the Third Cliff revetment project back during the summertime. And part of the scope of services for this project is to do an alternative analysis, as Sean had mentioned. And it's going to be quite an undertaking, and it is an undertaking to do this. We're still developing this alternative analysis report. And as part of this work, a subscope is to do geotechnical explorations throughout the whole length of the Third Cliff revetment, which is about 4,800 feet. Fortunately, after we got involved, we were able to find some boring data that had been done prior, I think some dating back into the 1970s, which is about in the middle sections of the length of revetment. But what we didn't have is any data on the end. So what we need to do and what we're requesting under this RDA, I spoken to Amy, and she recommended that this would be the filing for this coming before the commission. But we wanted to perform borings on the northern end and the southern end of the sites to kind of tie in with the data that we have that, again, would support the alternative analysis we're working on. So what we're proposing is in the left-hand photograph there in the figure, that's at the northern end of Third Cliff revetment at the southern extent of Peggotty Beach. We would be accessing the end of Town Way with a geotech boring rig. It'll come just right off of Town Way, right onto the beach there, going up over the sand and cobble that's there now. And we'd be doing, that'd be the first boring we'd be doing. All these borings, we're going to try to get down to 40 feet in depth. We anticipate 1 day for each of these borings, although the total duration may be a little longer with the setups and the drillers' schedules. But it shouldn't take much effort. And like I said, we're hoping to get each one of these done in a day. The one in the lower right, that's off of Collier Road, just north of 43. There is a easement access right to the north of that residence. And we have, the town and I submitted right-of-way entries to the abutters there, and we've received them back. I think we're still waiting on one. We sent them to about 4 different residents because we weren't sure exactly, with the access of the drill rig and where the actual borings would take place, if we'd encroach upon their property or not. So we felt it was going to be safe to send them the right of entry forms. We also sent the butters a full RDA package along with the butter notification. So they've all been notified, and I believe we've received all the green cards back with the exception of one. So in the southern area, we have 2 borings. They'll access from off of Collier Road. Right now, that's an older aerial image, I believe, and there is a lawn that's been established in that easement. The driller will provide some terra mats to protect the lawn. It is a rubber-tired rig, and we showed examples of what that drill rig would look like in the RDA application. So they're just going to set them down. They're going to drive over it, do the work, get out of there, and then take up the mats and complete the project. So that's where the other 2 borings, so a total of 3, covering 2 sites.
Okay. Anything else to add to that? So I'll go to Richard.
No, I don't have any particular questions. Looks fine to me.
Okay. Doug?
No questions.
Penny?
Nope. Looking good.
Jen?
Nope.
Andy?
No questions.
Brendan?
No questions.
Amy, anything to add to that?
No, it appears to meet the requirements of a negative DOA.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience on that? So I'm just assuming, Sean, or that you'd be planning these to do them when they're at a lower tide during the day or something like that. Just looking at the proposed locations for a couple of these.
Yeah, we're, well, all 3 of these will be above mean high water. We can certainly adjust the actual location out in the field, but we don't intend to be out there and, super high tide and doing this in the wet. So that's not the intent. There can be some variations, a couple feet either way on those borings.
Sure.
But the idea is to be above high tide as well.
Okay. Awesome. Great. Thank you. I have a motion.
I make a motion for a -3.
I have a second.
Second, Doug?
All in favor? Richard?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you. On January 6, 2021, during the 5:15 meeting in the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of the Massachusetts Electric Company for a determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaws for activities related to a new distribution pole, new equipment on poles on 399 First Parish Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information is available on the town website. Good evening. Who do we have from Epsilon?
I'm not sure who's on the call from Epsilon. Maybe they should raise their hand. Is it M. Kelly, maybe?
Yeah, he was raising his hand. Physical, not digital hand.
Okay, M. Kelly's on.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Kelly, representing the Massachusetts Electric Company. I work for Epsilon Associates, and they are proposing some maintenance activities and some grid modernization activities. The plan is to replace an existing distribution pole. The pole will be replaced in kind. The existing pole will be removed. Specifically, this pole is identified as 116-1A, and it is located in a bordering vegetated wetland. Construction mats or timber mats will be used for access purposes. And in addition to that work, they plan to install 2 new electric distribution poles, wooden, for power sensing and communication purposes. These poles are identified on the site plan as 116-A and 116-B. Both of these poles will be installed within the 100-foot buffer zone immediately outside of the Scituate substation.
Okay. Anybody have any comments? I'll start with Richard.
Well, I guess I have no question about the polls you discussed. What are the other polls? Because there are 1, 2, 3 others that I see, maybe even 4 others that I see.
So those are all existing structures.
So there's no work proposed on those in that area. Okay, thank you.
No.
Thank you.
Doug?
No, that covers it. No questions.
Penny?
I'm just curious, how are you getting in there? Are you coming in from the substation on First Parish or behind the greenhouse? It looks like their parking lot goes right out there.
Yeah, we'll be accessing via the substation. There's
Okay, so you're gonna drive all the way in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Jen?
No, I'm good.
Andy?
I'm okay.
And Brendan?
I'm good.
Okay, Amy?
No comment. I mean, I think that largely this is exempt maintenance. The Mass Electric has strict BMPs for projects like this. It appears to meet the requirements of a negative DOA.
Okay.
I make a motion.
Do we have anybody in the audience?
Okay.
Okay, I didn't even know there was a Mass Electric left anymore.
I make a motion for a -3, Frank.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
You can have a dog.
Oh, that was. Who was that?
Jen.
Jen. Wow. Okay. All in favor, Richard?
Yep.
Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you. Okay. Want to get on to these orders?
Yep. You want to do them individually or all together?
Just do them.
Well,
no,
you need to
Yeah.
take the first 3 individually, and then we were not going to vote on the townway extensions. We were just going to discuss those.
Yes. I remember now.
And you guys have been distributed orders for those 5 projects. So
okay. All right. I'll make a motion. We accept the orders as written for 281 Old Oaken Bucket Road.
Do I have a second?
Second. Doug?
Goes Doug. All in favor, Richard?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay.
I make a motion. We accept the orders as written for 159R Glades Road.
Second.
That was Richard. All in favor, Richard?
Yep.
Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes, thanks. 109 River Street.
Yep. I make a motion. We accept the orders as written for 109 River Street.
All in favor, or second, rather? Did I get a second?
Second.
They get it.
Woo, Andy.
This is a little game. All in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thanks.
You want to
Okay.
do the minutes before we discuss those orders? Because that's going to take a few minutes.
If
Sounds
that's
good.
what, is that what you want to do, Penny?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea because we might get bogged down and forget these. I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes for 12/7 as written.
I'll take a second on that.
Second, Andy.
So in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Now we can go back.
Okay, so just on these,
Do you want to vote the extensions?
Yep. Okay, why don't we do that too? I make
okay,
a motion that we extend, what, for 2 years or what, Amy? How long? 1, 2, or 3?
Oh, shoot. I think there are 3.
Okay, I make a motion that we extend the orders of condition for 19 Peggotty Beach Road for 3 years.
Second.
it was, okay, we have
Richard on a second.
Richard's on the second, so all in favor. Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank's yes. Richard, I'm assuming if you second it, you're
Yes.
good for it.
Okay, one more. I make a motion, we extend the orders of condition for 238 Central Ave for 3 years.
And do I have a second?
Second, Doug.
Doug. Okay, all in favor. Richard,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you.
Now we can discuss.
So with regards to Town Way, there's a fair amount going on there. And so we thought we'd try to go through the orders, the pertinent pieces, a lot of boilerplate, but the pertinent ones, get some feedback from the members as to your thoughts on these. And then we'll pull together a final set of orders that we can vote at our next meeting. So this isn't, the meeting's closed, there's no more public input, but we just want to be sure that there's been a lot discussed that this has dragged on for a while, that we get the thoughts from you folks that we should have for these two. And there's a lot here. I mean, we can condition these with a series of conditions, or you can you can choose to deny it. So these are the sort of the conditions that Amy and Jen have put together. So I thought we'd just try to work through this a little bit. Amy, where do we want to start with 47?
Sounds good. I mean, everybody, did everybody get a copy of the orders?
Yes.
I think Jen sent them out to everybody. I mean, I'm sure that they're not perfect. I did spend quite a bit of time going through, but sometimes you always find something, right? Because, and you could always, certain things are subjective where you may say, doesn't really belong here. Like I'm already thinking number 26 could be struck. You know what I mean? Like for fertilizer, herbicide, pesticide, do we really need to say it on a beach? You know what I mean? But that's a standard condition that we have in here. I don't know, guys. I mean, we don't usually do it this way, but on projects like this where there's a lot to think about, I think it's certainly appropriate that you get what you want in here and that you go, you know, weigh whether you want to approve the projects, you know, as is, or if you want to impose special conditions so that they're more like you intend or more like you discussed in the hearings themselves. You know, the section special conditions are definitely go through what I felt represented, what was discussed in the hearings for a take home. And then, you know, in the sections before that, there's, you know, just required notification procedures, and then there's some more administrative items. And then on 47, I have it titled sedimentation and erosion control, but I think that that probably could be tweaked a little bit because, again, on a beach where you're just installing piles, there's not really a huge need for erosion control. And I think actually on number 48, I largely replaced that section with instead calling it resource protection and construction equipment. I mean, does anybody want to take a lead for the discussion and suggest how we should go through, or just pick, you know, any questions that you might have on things that are in either order, and we can just start discussing.
So on 47, or both of them, Amy, you and I have had discussions about trying to make sure that we minimize future disturbance on that beach. For too long, people are going back every year and shifting around a good amount of material under the guise of either access or covering a septic system or doing something else there, you know, getting parking. And I for one don't see the need to go down to that old parking spot, or the old house sat down fairly low and they had to remove material around it. And that doesn't have to happen anymore.
No.
So what we did do at Man Hill and some other locations is said, you know what, we'd rather see you place some gravel or something you can drive on without getting stuck on top of the existing dune, whatever form it takes after the winter. And we need to limit that area. So it's whether it's for 2 or 3 cars or whatever, it should show on the plan where they're allowed to place material in the spring or summer to be able to access the house. But we're trying to stop some of the excavating that goes on under these houses. I know there's some considerations like a water shut off or something like that, and maybe some of those could have extensions placed on them. But we're just trying to stop some of the disturbance that happens out there, not trying to totally keep folks from using it. They want to be able to get their car out to their house and be able to bring in whatever, groceries, people, but somehow minimize the continued disturbance of that. So if we think that we've got that within this order, and then I can't remember, was there a limit of work placed around this?
On these projects, there isn't a limit of work called out. I mean, it's on a beach, right? So it's not like your traditional site where you would have a limit of work.
Well, it doesn't probably need erosion control, but should we still have
Silt
either
fence,
or maybe just whether it's a silt fence or it's a plastic fence or something,
mm-hmm.
and say this is as far as the equipment, because you're gonna have some fairly large equipment. So we don't want them creating new areas or storage yard or something else adjacent to the project.
Mm-hmm. I think we can work that in.
I'm looking at 47
Yeah.
and just wondering I'm looking at number 47, number 53. That's confusing. Just under certification. And I don't know if we've done this before, but I appreciate the way it's written in the sense that it's, calling out needing an as-built. But I'm wondering if there's some time frame or more specificity that could be provided as opposed to, when it's completed or substantially completed.
We could definitely hone in on like a partial as built, like put a time frame associated with it, but generally that would be the requirement, would be at the end of the project. That's what's required for the certificate of compliance. But on some of the more complex, larger projects, there's requirements for interim as builts. So I guess that, assuming that the project duration, the permit itself is valid for 3 years, with the hopes that the project would get accomplished within that time frame. But as we all know, a lot of these projects don't get built, and then we end up extending them. So, and I think that with these orders, there's probably also a high probability that they would get extended since the post-storm damage is rolled into these orders. So I don't know. I think probably a time frame post pier or pile installation would be a good idea. So that's a good comment, Jen.
Yeah, maybe it's something, I don't know, around like certificate of occupancy requires at least an interim one or something.
Yeah, that's a good comment.
She's right on.
It only took me 3 years, Richard.
It doesn't seem like that long at all.
Oh, God.
Okay. Anybody else?
Did we ever discuss any bond or anything for the planting? We just call out, like needing a 5-year window and a 75% survival rate. I'm just not sure if there's a.
Yeah, I think that's another good point. I don't think necessarily a bond is what we would typically do in these situations, but we certainly could associate the planting aspect of it, like give that a time frame.
Yeah.
And while we accept the ECR planting plan, and we say that, yeah, we need to plant it and we need to make sure that it survives and give us some annual and final monitoring report, we don't really say at which point in the process it should be done. So perhaps that should be one that's prior to occupancy.
Yeah.
I think that these orders are pretty straightforward, honestly. We're accepting the new house on piles. We have our pile plans. The condition about the abandonment of that paved driveway area so that the natural dune conditions can re-establish, like Frank already brought up. And then if any material is brought on, to make sure that it's naturally occurring beach material, so it's not dense grade, you know, so that you're not moving the materials around each season, you're just using what is there, and the materials are naturally moving and shifting, migrating. The planting, and then allowing for post-storm cleanup and access. So I see a typo right there, but so these ones I think are, and maybe addition of the limit of work with the silt fence.
Amy,
For
on
the-
number, go ahead, Jen.
I was just, so for the abandonment of that paved service,
yeah,
surface, I think that could probably be argued, like, is abandoned just not maintained? Like, I mean,
Well, they can't keep digging it out, Jen.
right. So I guess maybe say that.
Well, I don't think they're supposed to park there anymore. They're supposed to park on the other side
yeah,
of the house.
Right, but I'm just calling, I agree with you, Penny, but like, can we be more specific about what abandoned might mean?
Okay.
yes.
And I think we decided that we wouldn't ask them to necessarily remove it because we don't want more digging to occur. We're just going to let material wash over it, and that seems to be what happens every year anyways. Amy, concern I have on number 49, not allowing, say, dense grade, but it's pretty hard to just put like rounded cobble or pea stone. Maybe shells would work to keep people from getting stuck. You usually need a little bit of some kind of gravelly material to drive on. Like, we wouldn't want it to be crushed asphalt, or we wouldn't want it to be crushed concrete. But I think if it was a gravelly product, I'm just, I don't know if we can call that a natural product or whatever, or specify no crushed asphalt or concrete.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that the wording is subjective. So there's a lot of gray area in people's interpretation on what is dense grade. You know what I mean? I did try to qualify it by saying naturally occurring beach material, sand, rounded cobble, pea stone, or shell. Like, you don't want angular gravel.
Right. No,
so
we don't want
maybe we just need to call that out more specific. No angular material, no asphalt or bituminous.
Yep. And no crushed concrete either.
Yep.
So it's got to be a natural material and non-angular. But they could come up with a gravel with a little bit of material in there that they could drive on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the open driven wood piles, no footings, 2 feet above BFE, no enclosures or lattice. I think that's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, so I think honestly, I think that I need to wipe out there's probably some conditions under sedimentation and erosion control that need to be wiped out. Like, I can see probably like 7 of them that I'm just going to cross out, which are more geared to a site on the mainland, not on a barrier or a beach with wave action. So probably just replace it largely with the section that I have on 48 Townway.
Okay.
Does anybody else? I mean, and this comes from, I've got pages of notes from these hearings going back and forth. And really think that captures the essence of it, was that area in the front of the house. And then, I mean, they definitely did provide a lot of information. Like, we've got a document list. We've got, pretty good information on how they're going to accomplish the project. I don't know if maybe we need to call out again, like a construction meeting, if that's not clear, with construction sequence, and I think rigging plan, like something like that maybe is something that's not in here that might need to be.
I agree, Amy. That's a great call out.
Like, prior to any work, those documents should be provided. As far as seeing improvements, I mean, I think your improvement is going to be, having the new owner cease from altering the beach. So that will be good. Just to let the beach and the beach function as it's supposed to do. You're getting a larger footprint out there, but you are getting, the house is going to be elevated. So that's good. You're getting new septic.
Is the septic going on the other lot? Do we get that?
So that would be on 48. On this one, the septic is on the landward side.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, time of year restriction. I wasn't sure. I had a time of year restriction for 48. And I mean, these projects are really tied together. So
should be on both.
I don't know if we should stick the time of year on this one too, just to make it clear. Rich, yeah, okay.
But what time of year do you want them?
Well, so since the beach is both private and public, and this is a recreational area, I was going to restrict it between June 15th and September 15th.
To not be able to work between June 15th and... Yeah, the only hard part about that is can we do that within our...
I just wouldn't want the crane out there.
Yeah, but does that, under the Wetlands Protection Act or the things that we control, is that something that we can actually tell people? I mean, if we were the planning board and we were trying to restrict the development or something, they have mechanisms to do that. But I'm just wondering, do we have the authority?
I think we do. They also offered it up during the public hearing.
Okay.
Time of year work restriction, but not restricting their ability to work inside. So that would be outside work. I mean, you guys have done it in other orders, and it was discussed during the public hearing. So
it was. All right.
I mean, but whether the date 6/15 to 9/15, if you think that's too restrictive and you want to, say, 7/1 to 9/1 or something. I mean, I just threw that out there.
Okay. Well, the weather can change and it can get hard to do some of this stuff. We could have an easy spring or it could be brutal and then you're up against it. So I think maybe from 7/1 to end of August to September 1st or something.
You could say July and August.
Yeah. I don't know where Labor Day is in that, but
it's always in September.
Just take a look and see whether we carry it out just another week or something to path to Labor Day.
Yeah, I know. Just like you don't really want them there leading up to the 4th of July, though, either.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
So maybe we say like June 25th to September.
Whatever.
So I don't know. We'll shake the
All right. Okay.
9/1. How about June 25th to September 10th?
That'll do it.
Because that's my birthday.
There you go.
I don't know.
All right.
Okay, so that's some good comment.
So the one concern, I think probably my biggest concern about a project like this, that actually applies to 48 more than 47, but they are kind of tied together. That's the potential of a mishap during because they're going to take that house off and crane it back, walk it back, and place it on a new foundation. That part of that, that if, and I'm sure the contractor doesn't want to have something like that happen, but I wonder if what we say about, I don't know how we deal with that, but I was part of somebody moving a barn one time and it fell off the truck. And that's why I'm talking like this. Luckily, I wasn't driving. But, it really makes a mess of things. And if that happened here, where there's a potential of a lot of debris washing out into the ocean. So I don't know how we phrase something like that in a condition, other than doing it in somewhat of a general manner. I mean, if it sort of stands to reason, but like, and I assume that portion of the house would be empty. There's not going to be a bunch of old paint cans and,
Ooh, that's a good point, Doug.
that it would be devoid of anything in the house prior to moving. If something that happens, I'm just trying to imagine, bottles of bleach and stuff like that going out and spilling into the ocean, like where we would, be causing some damage, to wildlife or what have you. So I don't know how you say that other than contractor to take care, or I don't know. I don't know how to
all necessary precautions.
Yeah, that kind of language to ensure that if there's a storm moving in, we don't want them to rush it and try to hurry it up and get done because the storm's moving in and the weekend's coming around, and the crane breaks down and then there it is. So that's all I'm getting at. It's like, how do we, I mean, obviously if that happened, they'd be in dire straits anyways. So I don't know if it goes unsaid or if it's something we.
Well, I wonder if that's tied to like professional liability. I mean, like we don't want, like somebody who's not a professional, like that does this for a living, you know what I mean, to be just rookieing it out there and figuring it out on the spot. I mean, they did bring to a hearing
yeah, I remember
somebody
the guy that was going to do the
who's supposedly doing the work and does it as a living, but we want to make sure. So I think that's kind of tied to what we're looking for before you really get the A-OK to start, is we want to make sure that it's all legit,
So
there'll be a pre-construction meeting and.
Yeah, definitely a pre-construction. Amy or Doug, one of the things, in order to obtain a building permit, you have to give a certificate of insurance to the town. Typically, what they're interested in is, do we have workers' compensation? A contractor have that, but there would be able to be a provision that the contractor or the project owner supply the town with some sort of liability insurance, or maybe there's a way to get insurance to deal with mishaps like that for cleanup or or whatever, some kind of
Yeah.
underlying insurance. So
At
that,
least, at least that's put some on notice for care
right,
somehow, because, there's an oil spill, there's there's lawsuits and money exchanged and all kinds of things like that, but that didn't help the birds.
right,
After the damage is already done, and the money always seems like a pittance compared to the damage that could be done on, and not suggesting at all that this has the potential of being something that catastrophic, but that's always been my concern about a project like this, and it's just imagining something like that. Something just doesn't work, and we get a mess in the water. So that's all.
okay.
Yeah, I think that's covered with the BMPs presented in the notice of intent, but I think we could reiterate that in the orders.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go on to 48. You guys have those?
Yep.
And I think that probably this is, of the two, this is the, the one that might provoke the most thought. But I think that, it's starting at, again, it's a required notification, then it goes through administrative orders, which is pretty much boilerplate language, with other permits and what we've got the rights to do and not to do, and citing FEMA and building code and things like that. And then we go into resource protection, going back to no alteration of the dune is allowed. We want to make sure, see this, these are our wins with this project, is that, the natural dune is going to, the dune's going to be allowed to shift and beach sediments are going to move and migrate. I use that same language about dense grade permitted on the beach. So we'll clean that one up under number 26 to try to be more clear about what kind of materials we are going to allow.
Yep.
And then 27 gets into, so maybe actually some of these need to be carried over to 47, because this is all construction equipment shall be stored in a manner as to not introduce any pollutants into the resource areas, and in no event should, there be anything spilled. Rigging plan, no refueling of the equipment on the beach.
So that one I have a little issue with. So
which one?
With the refueling. So
okay,
if we're talking about the whole beach, if you get a crane or something out there, you don't want to have to crawl that crane all the way back to the pavement to fuel it. So maybe we can come up with some way to make sure it's done safely or whatever, but I don't think that it's realistic to say you can't fuel.
So then you just need to say BMPs.
Right.
I mean, you just want to get them to be thinking about it, right?
Yeah, yeah. So no vehicles or heavy equipment with tracks or tires to be used on the beach, but that I think that's kind of contradictory. I mean, what we're saying is we don't want them down on the below the rack line or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a way to do that, because the whole thing's really considered a beach. So I'd say, or pick an elevation if it's 11 or whatever elevation we want. Just say no machinery below that point.
Yeah, good comment. Yeah, and then get into the special conditions. There's only a few. I have piles installed using a crane, so minimize alteration of the beach. Same thing, and this is where you guys, I mean, during the meeting, you had talked about the expansion of the house and the plan that they gave us. I mean, it cuts the front portion of it off, right? So you're gaining that area, but you're also gaining a bunch of decks. So didn't know if you wanted to discuss conditions with that, or you wanted to accept the foundation plan that they had submitted, like whether you're happy or you wanted to condition that somehow. But otherwise, it's you're accepting that with the caveat that you're not in agreement with the mean annual water is presented, considering a portion of the project as land under ocean. And so number 36, with basically just bumping it to a Chapter 91 license for that portion of the work, or that portion of the project.
So if they go for a Chapter 91 license and the issuing authority there says you don't need one, then
they're all set.
Okay.
Or they just get a Chapter 91 and then we've got the state
Right.
in on it too. And so Frank, and this one is where they've got the tight tank on the western, so it's in the easement now. So they used that statute that Jeff brought up in order to put it in that private easement. And I know like the last discussions was like, is there any way we could get it onto 47 to get it even further out of that tidal zone area?
Yes.
And I'm not sure how to condition that, like what wording. So I don't have anything in the document right now as far as that's concerned.
So, I mean, my feeling is that we've allowed the Board of Health allows for septic systems to be on other properties. And our whole goal is to get this tank and piping as far from the beach as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And where they're doing these two projects together, I don't see why they couldn't give an easement from number 47 to have the tank on that property. I mean, the only concern, I guess, is that there'll be a fairly long pipe that runs from 48 to 47, and then they're going to have to maintain that pipe seasonally.
Mm-hmm.
Do we already have something in there that they have to pump those in the fall? Those systems have to be pumped at the end?
Not. I think that's tied into the Title V permit.
All right. Well, we should take a look as well. That those be pumped out before
winter
at the end of the season.
Okay.
Yeah, that
that's
would
good.
be a good idea at the end of season every year, annually.
Yeah.
So they're empty. Or they,
winter. Yeah.
you know what? Are they more subject? They're going to be more subject to buoyancy if they're empty, though, too. I don't know.
I think that they're anchored.
I think most of the time, Doug, they have a tank with a foot like on the bottom that spreads out.
Yeah, I've done those spread foot. I forgot to ask Greg about that part of it.
I think we did discuss it the last time they were in front of us.
Did we?
That's exactly
Yeah.
what we talked about. How they were.
Okay.
Okay, so does anybody have anything that sticks out? I mean, I think it comes down to the Chapter 91, I think, pretty much on this one.
The statement that the mean high water is closer to elevation 6, you said that came from professional sources and field inspections?
Yeah.
Who was that, a review consultant?
That
The
was
professional sources you're citing there?
Yeah, colleagues and state.
Okay. I'm not sure, but I think, well, DEP, don't they use the mean high water elevation determined by NOAA? You know, it's an elevation, an actual elevation, even if the tides exceed that.
I'm not sure how that works.
That's what it looks like what they did, and I do think they're off a little bit.
I mean,
but I don't know if they're off that much. I think it's probably somewhere around 4.3 or 4.5 feet, somewhere around there. But whatever. I think I don't want to belabor that. I think.
So I know. So is it better to take it out and to say less? But then again, I was like, I wanted to provide some kind of context as to why
yeah, no, I just was wondering what we had backing up the 6. Obviously the 6 elevation 6 is more restrictive on the site, so you're suggesting the deck might be subject to a Chapter 91 permit.
Like the entire structure.
Yeah.
Because we've got 6 probably there's a telephone pole out there. And I think it's difficult to determine because as the beach was altered, you know what I mean? It's like in the winter it gets eroded and then the springtime comes and then the sand gets moved around. It's like, you know, it's a little bit tough to say exactly what the natural conditions are.
Yeah, but you can see at high tide. I mean, that whole thing is water goes all the way up.
Yeah.
To that. So, you know, it's not down where they're showing it because so I don't disagree. And I think my only question was where that number 6 came from, that we have like.
Yeah, it came from actually the town's consultant that does beach work on revetments, and then also from CZM. So.
Okay. Good. Well, it just is, you know, I like the, you know, you kind of get to punt it to DEP and have them make a call. So I'm fine with. I don't think you get rid of that and leave that in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's close enough. There's enough discrepancy that, I mean, I suppose that's really the call that you guys are making is like, is this really something that you want the local conservation commission approving this project? Because I mean, it is something that's, you know, it's going to be there with all brand new piles. You know, it's a little bit of an improvement because you're getting half the home clearly out of the water, but it's not like they're making the footprint a lot smaller. Because they're continuing to have decks surrounding the structure itself. And just when it intercepts that land under the ocean, it's subject to other permitting authorities in addition to the local commission. So, I mean, I think that in itself is I think that's really, you know, if the state wants to buy in on this too, then I think that's really what we're looking for. I mean, or alternatively, you don't give orders and you just have the state weigh in. I mean, but then again, who knows? I don't know. That's a tough one.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else on this? We're getting to 8:45 here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could go another hour, Frank.
Oh,
God.
Good for you.
You're young.
I'm not. Guys, it's my bedtime.
I mean, all in all, I think that, again, like, you can keep looking at the different angles. I mean, we are getting, with this project, you're getting an improvement of the resource area function, right? As long as they are gonna, adhere to the orders, meaning that they're not gonna go and modify the beach every year, and you know what I mean? And it's like, so you are really gonna get a house that's looks like it's about to fall over. Now it's gonna be actually on new piles, so it's gonna be a lot sturdier. And you're going to get the beach to move and shift, and you're going to get a new tight tank, whereas right now there's not, there's nothing. So I think that's all good.
Yeah.
Kinda. Maybe.
Well, I mean, if you want to give me direction to put together denials, you kind of need to do that too. These are both approving projects there. It's just there's special conditions,
I think I think this is you deny it. I think DEP issues a superseding order. I don't, in my opinion, I don't see.
Well, that's always the risk. We've denied some projects that we felt were not great projects. Take Hadley Road, for example, and then DEP rolls over on us. And in fairness, I guess people look at this and say they don't want to take property from people.
Yeah, because that's your only other option, because if it's obviously in disrepair. I don't think people use it. So if they're going to fix it up and make use of it, then they got to do something with it.
Right.
So the other option is to say you can't, that shouldn't be there.
Right.
I don't.
Well, but the use is going to still be recreational, though.
But my point is that the state is fairly reluctant, as they should be, in taking property from people. So
right.
when you deny someone the use of that property, it's the same as a taking, in a sense. So what you try to do is work out the best scenario, and we've tried to do that before with conditioning a project with the things we think will make for a better project. And then condition it. But, by the same token, it's a difficult one because of where it sits. In some ways, it seems kind of crazy to continue to put houses in this location. And we get cross direction, I feel, from the state on some of these. They don't want a whole bunch of things to happen, but they don't want to say people can't live there. So
yeah,
it's not easy.
I think it's conditioned fairly properly. I think it's pretty. I think you did a good job, Amy. I think that's, it's not particularly aggressive. There's not a hot tub this time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there might be.
Well, I'm still waiting, actually. I don't know if waiting is the right word, but was hoping I'd put out some feelers for other towns, like Professional Network, other examples of orders on beaches in a coastal dune velocity zone, to see if I'm maybe not, I'm missing something like a slam dunk that I'm just not sticking out. But I did review other orders that we had on Air Road, and then also Townway Extension, and it's pretty consistent. You're right. I mean, I don't think that we want to take a totally different stance from other projects that have been conditioned in this area. So it's pretty consistent, although this project is, a little bit different in how they're executing it. And in the end, it is a residence on a beach. One's close to the really, really close to the water, and the other one's not so much. So
Right. You guys have copies of this, and you can give Amy some feedback. I think we're there for this.
wrapping it up. Yeah.
Yeah. So the only other thing that we had was
Andy.
So I don't.
Oh yeah, Jen, can you share that plan? So we're going to go on to boy, this has been a long meeting, longer than usual. Andy gets to take it up with Appleton Field.
You set me up for success here at 8:48.
Well, we can postpone to the next meeting.
Well,
I mean,
I can do a quick presentation. I mean, I think what I'm looking for here is is the commission supportive of the main idea, and then what are the next steps to help us drive this? So I can probably be pretty brief.
Sure.
And just trying to move this forward. So we have this opportunity to restore farming to Appleton Field. So Jen has the map of the field up, and essentially the proposal that I've come up with working with a few folks is to see in field 3 there, which is sort of right when you walk into the field from the parking lot, that front half has already begun to be worked on by some volunteers. We were looking to make that community gardening space, so some kind of shared space with folks learning from experienced gardeners and farmers to produce food locally, likely to be given to the food pantry, and then probably some mix of private citizen plots, people who have their own plot to be able to garden. All of it organic, no-till, with ecology in mind. I think that, I would love to see a really robust and booming operation out there when it comes to community farming, and love to see like that all of field 3 and maybe field 1 and 2. That would be ambitious, eventually being used for community farming and personal garden plots and letting people in town, use that field. But I think that's down the line. And having talked to some folks who have run community gardens and who are part of Teak Sherman here in town already, I think you can see where I've added my own orange line. It seems like that front part for the next few years would be, if we could fill that up and get that in full use, that would be pretty good. So that would all be used for community farming. But the whole field really can be farmed and done with organic practices and with the right grower, can be valuable, and we can provide more locally grown, healthy food to the community. And so, would love to see some of it licensed out to a commercial grower, with conditions that they're following organic practices. And I think I'd love to frame up an RFP or whatever the best process is to do this, that asks, that prioritizes people who will help restore pollinators and also work with the community gardeners to support that effort. So, so basically you can see on the map there, a suggestion that we license that rest of field 3 for 5 years to someone, the others for 10, and then kind of revisit. I think fields 4 and 5 are probably maybe forever could be commercially farmed. And, again, if we could get something really robust and popular going, maybe 1 and 2 could go to the community farming. So I'm kind of, I just would love to see it happen. I think it's a great space to bring the community together around gardening, growing your own food, local produce, that kind of stuff. But I'm feeling some urgency because after kind of looking at that field, it's probably still in fair condition if you ranked it when it comes to invasives and the ecological health of it. But left too much longer, I think it will deteriorate and will require more resources to kind of bring it back to a healthy condition. You can even see like fields 4 and 5. I don't think the pigs that the last farmer was using got out there anytime recently, and those are in considerably worse shape than fields 3, 1, 2, and 3, for instance. So feeling some urgency, and I think there already is some work going on out there. I think there's actually pretty good interest with a core group of volunteers, and we could get something going right away. I think there's interest from local growers. So there's a whole plan. I'm not sure if I can circulate that to the whole commission or not. It kind of lays out the details of it.
Yeah.
So I could circulate that.
Yes, please.
Okay. I can send that to the
We'll do it for you.
Actually, why don't we let Jen? Right.
Great. So, everyone can take a look at it and ask questions later if they'd like. but once we have buy-in, I guess, I'm happy to keep driving this and keep pushing this forward. And I just, some of you have experience with projects like this, would love to know, like, who to go to next and who we need in town to buy into this and approve it to get it going. I'd love to see it use this growing season. There's probably some urgency if that's the case, because someone who's going to prep this and get it ready to go is going to need a little bit of lead time heading into the spring. So that time is sort of fast approaching. So that's where I am. That was my attempt to be very brief. But I'd love to take questions if you have them, and then see what appropriate next steps are.
I love the idea.
Yeah. So
And I appreciate the urgency to it as well. I definitely support the ability to move quick on at least the community growing. I don't know, 10 years is such a long time. I like what's the world going to look like then?
Right.
I have a little bit of reservation, but I also have zero experience in terms of like what's normal.
Yeah, I was initially inclined to reserve more of it for the community purpose. But when you actually go to the field, the area that we're starting with is bigger than you think, when you look at it. And talking to like John Belber and some of the other folks who have done this stuff, I mean, he didn't balk at it. He was like, well, let's start here. If we could fill field 3 in 5 years, that would be a huge accomplishment. So, I mean, he was confident. That gave me a little more confidence that was realistic.
Is there a certain size plot that people take with a community garden?
Yeah, 10 by 10, I think.
That's it?
Yeah. There's some variation. At Weir River Farm, it was 20 by 20.
Okay.
All right. Well,
That's
John
pretty big.
usually does the 10 by 10. I know we did it at Teak Sherman, and some people took 2 plots. I know one fella took 3 or 4, and that was fine, and it filled right up.
Yeah.
Okay. So when Amy and I, we had this discussion earlier on, and the fellow that was interested in John Belber was interested, and they needed a little bit of money for a few things. And so Amy and I discussed this with the town administrator, and he raised his eyebrows a little bit about how we go about licensing this. And I think that's the part, Andy, that we need to get resolved with the town. And then I can't imagine anybody having any issues with it, but it is under our care and custody. We have always planned to farm it, but we would probably run it up the flagpole with the selectmen as well, and then would figure out how to solicit proposals from commercial farmers.
Yep.
And keeping in mind our goals to have a sustainable property with no, maybe organic or whatever we think is appropriate for this area.
Yep.
But so I think that the 2 things that, if your members could let you get this information, get some feedback back to Jen and Andy. People can communicate with each other. There's not a problem with that. You just can't do it in a quorum format or like reply to all. So, if somebody's got a question for Andy on something, just send it to him. You don't have to go through Jen or Amy for all of that. But if you could do that fairly soon, in the meantime, we'll try to pursue with the town administrator what he feels is the appropriate procedure to allow this. And maybe, Andy, if you could think, about the community garden growing space, and then what we want to attach to any of the commercial ones, if we're going to solicit commercial farmer or something. And I think there could be some real benefit to that if somebody's got some equipment in there to do some work that it might be beneficial to the community garden as well.
Yeah, I think we could put in some things, where they're responsible for mowing field edges and doing things that are in their interests and the community gardeners' interests, building in some efficiencies.
Great.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Will this have any impact? What impact would this have on trails that go around this garden? We have commercial fields and.
Nothing.
Yeah, none really. There's go ahead, Frank. I was going to say there's a trail that goes between fields 1 and 2.
Right.
Yeah.
And that could stay, I think.
So yeah, the fellows the folks that are doing our trail volunteering have actually gone in with a mower, and they mowed down the one side, and they actually crisscrossed it with a couple others. And we can take a look at what they did, and if in shaping up the fields we need to redirect that a little bit. I think we could still make that work. We'll want people to be able to work around the perimeters of this, but we certainly don't want everybody that goes up there to march through the middle of somebody's garden.
Yeah. It looked like there were flags potentially for a loop around the edge of the field, along the perimeter, which that might be perfect, because then you could fence, on the other side.
Yep.
You don't want dogs in the garden, so
no.
You don't want deers in the garden either.
Yeah.
I think whatever.
I didn't say the two expenses that would be required. The big ones would be a new deer fence and a well.
Yeah.
And I think we when we did the CR for that property, Andy, I think we allowed for those kind of things. I think what we're not supposed to have is any buildings, which I'm not sure. I think that's like a regular CPC project. I don't know whether those pig tractors could be somehow converted to a place for people to store their tools or something like that, but think about it.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, so tonight I just wanted to if we could get a sense from the commission if they're in favor of moving forward with this. It's not a formal vote, more of a consensus, and then get your ideas into Andy, and let's see what we can do with the town to formalize any sort of agreement. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Anybody else?
Want a plot?
So I guess let's make it simple. Does anybody disagree with this?
No.
Not at all.
Great. Awesome. Andy, thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Wasn't too long.
Right. Appreciate it. So I'd like to get one more motion.
A motion to close?
Wait a minute, Frank.
Jesus.
I told you in the beginning, I have a quickie. When I was down Hammerock today, we have all kinds of problems down there.
Yeah, we're not going to solve that tonight.
No, not that one, but somebody needs to get down there. There's a dock that next door to Mr. Newell's there.
You mean Mr. Wynn?
Mr. Wynn's, yes. There's a dock down there that's been all torn up by a storm. And the fella, I don't think he's come in for at least minor activities permit, but he's got stuff all over the marsh. And we were just talking about if the house fell and this stuff went into the ocean on Town Way. Well, we've got a situation down there that there's all this lumber on the marsh. He's trying to take everything apart to rebuild it. And
Jen Smith says if she can leave the room right now, she'll personally write it up in the morning.
Well, it's not so much. Somebody has to go down there and speak to this gentleman. He's trying to fix his dock, but in the process, there's all this stuff all over the marsh. Okay. It's a mess. I couldn't believe
the owner's on site now? Let me know right now. The owner's there currently?
Oh, yeah. It's right next door to Mr. Wynn's house, and he's trying to put the walkway back together, but he's got lumber all over the marsh there, and he's pulling everything apart. I mean, the next storm that comes, it's all in the river. That's all I can say.
That's the one we talked about last time where we had action from Keith Wallow. Had at least asked like what we needed, like what kind of permits in order to fix it. And I'm going to guess that he didn't like whatever price
somebody
was
needs to get
associated
down
with
there,
somebody.
Amy, with authority and
Yeah.
see what's going on, because it's a mess. Okay?
Well,
That's
he just
all.
needs to expedite the cleanup and get it out of there and not
He
destroy the
has no
marsh.
intentions of getting it out of there. He's taking it apart to put it back together. And if
Can
a
we,
storm comes, it's all going to be in the river.
So then we can just do a cease and desist.
Well, you have to go down and see it, really.
Yeah.
All right. I was kind of floored when I was down there.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Frank. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Thanks, Brendan. All in favor? Richard?
Yes.
Doug?
Locked and loaded.
Kenny?
Yeah.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Seth?
Yes, yeah.
Good night.
It went so long that Mr. Gallagher missed his Waterways Commission introduction too. I'm sure he's sad about that.
I was going to go back to back, but I missed the opportunity.
All right. Have a good evening. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Sorry.